areas, and then they realized that rural areas may have smaller numbers, but they also have a lot fewer restaurants to choose from.
Yeah.
So,
I just want 8, 7, you can possibly with another 40.
Like Subway is the only chain restaurant we have in Lakewood.
mhm. I worked for Lakeview until January 2019. I moved over there.
That's right.
What about the water issues getting worse?
Yeah. They supposedly have this big grant to build a water treatment plant, but I'm not seeing a lot of progress.
Yeah, nothing like that happens fast. Not to mention, we have water back here.
Oh, God, really? That's like, good luck. Yeah. So the guy that told me to buy him, he grew up on the ranch. Right. Used to do it all the time. He was, give me that. Yeah, it's like making some dream.
How was the trip over? Good, smooth sailing until I hit the construction here in 95.
I heard last night that they go from minimal delays, like, I don't know, 6 o'clock or something like that, to 1 hour delays. Oh, really? So I was like, man, we made it this. Which way you guys come? You guys.
Driving down from Vail yesterday, yeah, I'd see these like convoys of 50 vehicles come through and, you know, and I was like, yeah, they're working somewhere. It was too consistent.
So yeah, Google Maps is warning me of a 7-minute delay. Yeah, that was optimistic.
I was like, it when, you know, ODOT says just alternate routes. Can you tell me what? Yeah, probably the same boat we were when the Highway 20.
And what we hadn't gone that way forever. I'm shocked. I haven't been over to be living.
They paved that exact section.
That's what I was.
And we took OWF up to Castle Rock for a walking talk.
Yeah, the county roads in there. That they call over this.
Well,
You said they adjusted.
I don't know what those landowners are gonna do. I mean, how do you remove 6 feet of mud and cattle?
It's right. Where's my huge? Oh, yeah, they're going, they build a new thing. My relatives up on the Jones Day that happened in the 60s. And to this day, you walk into the barn, and the barn works with, I mean, they literally didn't, they just left it the way it was, livestock, and so they didn't have it. Yeah. It's like that in the house below them. Just a little right in, through the windows, through the front door. Over the back. I think it kind of went around the house. Through the barn. Took out the beef wheel. So yeah, it was. So that's the dream and Jones.
We had a 4 spots on Oak Ridge Road that I did.
Yeah, it's not just one spot either, it's a series. The tribe is a lot of money trying to go from that river down here.
There's been a lot of money in Indian Creek. The other car up there, I'm not sure who did that.
Well, maybe all down in the bridge right now. I didn't even think about it. If I had thought about it, I'd have invited you to write. If you ever want to ride to a meeting together, you're right there in Lakeview. Let me know.
All right, yeah, do that. Now, I know to ride someday on a Forest Service, I have to fill out a volunteer cert agreement, JHA.
Yeah,
A little less formal than that.
I don't think we do right now. The direction flip flops about every 4 or 5 years. I think it's, if you're just going to meetings, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go out, do some and do,
Yeah.
go visit bonds or something like that. Go, it's not going to have to trail to it. That's my interpretation. Especially in town. I would think especially you guys too, because you're in official government travel when you're going to a RAC meeting, so. You're already covered. Yeah, best interest of the government, don't pay your mileage.
Yeah. Would make sense.
So if it makes sense, we won't do it. Don't tell anybody it makes sense. So I'll probably sign that dark sky letter on Thursday. I'll send you a copy. Pretty much use the template that you sent and modified it a little bit here and there. You'll have to get numbers. I just fill it out with general numbers because all the stuff that Don has sent us just has all the numbers for all of Southeast Oregon. It doesn't have our individual district numbers. Oh, I've got my, what's your name? Did Don send you those? Yeah. Of what we have to do. Right, but I don't think the individual, I couldn't find individual numbers. Hi.
Just got a quick question for you guys. Do you have an event going on in here today or this weekend?
Just today.
Just today? Okay, I was just wanting to make sure because we have to do extra maintenance on the sewer line after an event in this building. So I was just wanting to make sure that way I knew
Okay.
what was up.
But anyway, so I filled it out.
Okay, yeah.
That's fine.
I just wanted to it's in here. It's just that.
Yeah.
Acres of this, that of 144,008.
Right.
Hi. Yeah, OWO, my last move. Talking about, Tracy called it, so that it was sort of like successional projects, or successional treatments. And they were talking about it, but in the other, working to get longer monitoring periods. If you realize it, affects, place in 3 years. And I remembered that side out. Was it Clover Flat area?
Clover Flat.
Where we planted the wheatgrass and it didn't.
Oh, yeah.
For 6 or 7 years.
And honestly, Burns has a ton of those. Where they planted native sites and 8-10 years later. The same way at Clover Flat, we planted, it's a Medusa head site. We planted a mix of natives and crested. And put up snow plants, all this stuff. Got a few seeds in Germany, but nothing, right? Couldn't see grow rows, nothing. And then like 8 years later, I'm taking a shortcut and antelope hunting back across the Medusa head. And all of a sudden I'm going, crap, there's grow rows here. The grow rows here, just one good year. Like this year. I cannot believe that. Good. Doesn't mean it works every time. The one piece of advice that we got from Roger Sheely was put it in, for the seeds that you want to grow there, put as much of it on as you can afford. You're not planting a farm, you get about grass seed at 7 pounds to the acre.
Yeah.
You can afford 20 pounds to the acre, put it on. That was Jean Mangle. She did the research with Roger. Well, he's the one that told me. She and Roger did it together. And because that seed viability does change over time. If you put enough seed in the ground. Some of it, by the time you do get a good winter, it's going to take off. You may have enough seed in the ground that it will dominate the seed that you want. It's also numbers given that this cheatgrass, there's thousands and thousands of seed just for that stuff.
We treat it a lot too, monitoring ends in 3 years and basically reported to fail, you know, the treatment failed. But, you know, we extend monitoring out to 7 or 10 years and like that. Popped up in year 6.
So good to meet you. Like to meet you in real life, sir. What's your background? Where have you been? Where you come from?
Started in the industry, mine permitting, and then made the jump in 2016 to the government when Nevada gold industry was developed. Started off as an archaeologist in Tonopah field office, worked my way up to AFM, and then within 3 months ago, we got through the Mali.
So you know Jared.
Jared
Jared.
Biden.
No, Jared. I said it, and I go, God, I'm not gonna remember his name. Oklahoma, ADM.
ADM. Nope, never met
No, Jared. Okay.
I'm interested in a little bit.
But was it really?
I don't know, heard rumors.
That's just Nevada.
We have our ways of doing things. Some things that we do are good, some things aren't.
So was that on the DM?
Dr. Todd,
Sorry, as you said.
never retired.
So I'm over on the Liberty side. As a wildlife biologist,
Right on.
started there in 24 years.
Holy moly.
Volunteering.
When did you start? When did you start?
January 18th of 2000.
And then based on your office, I assume you have a background in bio or botany.
Fire. I was one in 99. The Bureau hired 5 new positions, fire economists. So we'll get the experiment station first. Scientists. Left there, become one of the new ecologists. Spent time as a fire economist. You guys talking about. I knew less about fire than people would. I talked to non-tech entertain. Field manager Andrew Sneeds.
I just, the only reason I asked is because we had an issue.
Oh, see, I'm talking archaeology, I'm recovering, that's not what it was, but associated.
Well, he's a
Clear to stand,
recovering
it's the chair's discretion.
He's good.
And it is, it's at the chair's discretion, but I wonder if,
No, I left archaeology.
and I'm not pushing it, so don't get me wrong. I kind of didn't say anything because I thought maybe Shane wanted some more of a dialogue, right?
Yeah, and keep basic.
Yeah, good.
Pushed it over the stand.
Oh, okay.
I-
So you guys
I'd love
did
to
you
hear
talk
your
about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. Point out our
But yeah,
going on brush.
so,
No, I think the other thing I can tell you is just keep going. Because it
when
eventually
we
it does, and I can't, I wish I could tell you. this
Yeah.
right, yeah.
It was
Other than we just kept.
This was his chance.
One thing we did do is we started.
Yeah,
To some
that's fine.
extent, I like
I'm
that.
sure you guys.
Have you guys talked about how you're gonna do comment,
You don't
divide things up,
I'm
make sure
starting.
it's,
We'll see how many
Fair.
people want to speak.
so you'll ask ahead of time,
My
and
old
divide it
office,
up, good.
we were,
That's good.
first point of duty for anybody.
I've seen that.
We turned everything. from cold to green.
Yeah,
And
no, it's
have
in
the
that.
pressure
plan.
and get
The chair
a.
basically said,
You come into 5, you last 2, 3.
you can speak up and say, no, actually, we're not.
Lo and behold, like,
We're gonna give everybody an equal amount of time, and
State leads, report leads, and their resource.
so I don't know how many, there's a lot of public sources, they may have
We absolutely
6, 8, 10 of
got nice,
public comment.
but
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
how we. that's how
And I don't, it's
really high
kind of up
retention
to
and morale is that we
the
work
rack,
on-
you know, I'm willing to stay
And I
longer if we want to
rate
give people
professional
more
pride,
time.
that's
That's
preference.
appropriate. So
yeah,
I
I'll
think
have to
that's-
stand
I think
on
that's
that.
One of the big changes here is you have to realize that you can't.
I
replace
think-
a position.
Typically what I've
You
seen
replace a
is
position, you can't.
you have
replace
10
it.
people who speak.
No,
so
it's
it's
not, you
10
take it,
people
you
there.
get it.
3
3
minutes
minutes
each.
case.
Your
And-
expectation is.
3 minutes is eternity.
It
to
is.
stand in
Line
front of the
yeah,
group. People think, oh, yeah, that's not good.
because
And they've done it.
we have your time.
So,
That's what we did in California, because we routinely had 10 people show up and talk about health versus or something.
And I had all.
And you need to give them each 3 minutes, and then half of them would go, you need to talk.
You're not gonna
He
do
said,
it
what
like
I
that.
needed to
Yeah,
say,
you gotta-
it'd be done in like 10
And
minutes.
what can you
Yeah.
train?
Okay,
What skill, what great skills?
Yeah.
until they figure out that, well, I'm gonna yield my time to this person.
When I'm developing.
Yeah, we don't bargain that way.
Everybody wants that problem.
Sorry, it
Tell,
doesn't
like,
work that way.
I remember me and Shepherd,
Leaders and.
she actually,
Have that.
so she's on the John Day Snake Rack now,
There are some
but
people that are really
came
good
to a
subject
meeting
matter.
prior to
Like, you want
that.
to career path after that term,
And
well,
she
term of life,
learned
but I
25
can't.
minutes.
That's rough.
And then there's, yeah, I think you also.
Yeah.
Small rounds.
That's all right.
Have a different results or two.
Yeah,
People that are in and out of the career within.
That's right.
Because they want.
yeah, very.
I've also discovered, I have a statement, I can ask them if they'll give me a copy of it into the record. Usually really excited to just, here's what I have.
I what you need. Use them as long as they stay.
So how's Lakeview?
We're hanging on
We hear that.
30%.
Yeah,
vacancy rate.
There's times I'll, you know what,
People have been doing 2, 3, 4 jobs for a couple of years.
And we did, and we got, and we were really defensive.
Where's-
We put out good work, we got a lot done. And it's not like we were half-assed.
We had to cut down the engine.
I think there's gonna be a change.
I think we tend to always try to go back.
I think a big change, there's some leadership changes in HR that aren't,
We've been getting first to, now I wouldn't
but I
say.
think there will be. The gal they're bringing in as a detailer to lead HR is one of the staffing people from.
I was looking for an AFM, I thought 3 to share.
For the fire director, that they
And you
actually
She knows how to get it
super-
done.
Super,
But.
but she's got a
one of the
lot
big
of culture
issues
she's
is
gonna have
that
to change. She won't do
our
it.
people get stuff and they like.
What I've been telling people for my time
These
these
community
days
areas
is
and
it's gonna
you
take
might
a
come
year.
to
but
they'll
we'll get
ever
there.
get a.
Yeah,
Things will
Oh,
get
and
better.
that
They
you
will
wouldn't get
improve.
down.
We just gotta be, try to be patient and do what we
I
can.
think
well,
that
Henny is out for
market
there, right?
ourselves, right? If we build up that reputation.
He
We're gonna
can
train
have
you,
up
you're
to
gonna be
4
good.
months if we
That's-
without
that's-
pay through FMLA.
Oh,
So
You
you gotta
guys said it was
decide,
gonna be
but I
done.
mean, it was open knowledge. He told everybody that if you didn't get a job by June. because you didn't
I could be.
So I don't expect.
Concentrate too hard. Shane. You concentrate too hard.
seems like a long-term.
My daughter's
detail
thinking about
idea.
if he goes.
There were a lot of opportunities.
Actually, I actually thought.
There was a plan B that was in place
Don't
when I was
get it
there
over.
that was gonna be exercised in
They're
June.
cute, I know. But
And that may be why he took FMLA, is because he may have heard of it. Found out. You know, you can't, when you're the HRO,
One of
in
our
order to get a
ranges.
PD classified, a position description, they go to the NOC, who has to submit it
We get a phone
to
call.
the HRO. If you get the HRO's PD reclassified, you get it to the NOC, it's gotta go through the HRO. You know, the writings on the wall, his PD was like 10 years old. So it was gonna have to be reclassified, and he'd already. And I'm looking
You know,
for
we
the-
found out, right, you contact Davis and say, hey, man, you gotta get your
I said,
goats.
look, we gotta get the PD reclassified.
He goes, what do you mean? I
He's
said,
like, the NOC will do it.
You know, here's a picture of your goats,
Good.
you know, you got.
Let me make a
got
very
like
good phone call.
No time to go get those
10
options.
minutes later, it's like, oh yeah, we'll reclassify that.
And somebody called me at W.
So glad to hear it's
Said, hey,
very
this is what's
consistent.
going on. I didn't think anything of it. Paul got him.
If you
The same
put him
day
in the right
he's
direction,
calling
it uses power for good.
I don't know if it took him to the mail or if it took him- but they're
The biggest
ship
issue
him on
with Barry is there's so much he doesn't understand.
And,
So you've gotta take the time
W chased it down.
to stop and explain, this is what we wanna do and this is why. And then he usually gets it. He goes,
Haven't heard back yet.
okay, great.
But they're gonna.
He
they
actually
were
texted me at
flying.
the beginning of the meeting.
He's short 2 goats.
Why are you
they're
sending
flying
2 alternates to the SLT
Starting
in
next
Burns?
week. I'm like, look for him.
No, I'm sending
And,
2 alternates to the
And then
phone
they're-
call, 2-hour phone call today.
Oh, you know
I will
what?
be in Burns, but because I'm in the meeting, I'm not attending the 2-hour phone call today. Oh, okay, I misunderstood.
Kathy wrangled it pretty well. Thinking Nita will if
She did.
catching on there.
Kathy wasn't the greatest. She wanted to
Was that a native
just
or?
tell HR this is the way it is and this is what you're gonna do. Not document anything, which doesn't sit well with any, right? And so I started working with John to figure out how to document stuff and that was fine. He was like, as long as you guys are documenting what your decisions are, I'm fine. It will change. I think Anita's gonna be really good. She's really high energy and that drains me. Right, because I'm not, but I really think she's gonna be really good. She's got an eye for detail. She's not willing to shake up the basket when she needs to. She's gonna be good for Barry. She's gonna keep Barry on track.
In my.
Which is exhausting.
Co-op program, I got to for.
Because, you know, as ASD, you've got a full job, right? Dealing with all the inside stuff. Well, in Barry wants you every
Outside of Duckwater.
outward
Or
facing.
the Duck Valley Reservation.
I can't do both.
And so I got
Just-
to part of the money crew.
Oh, wow.
Oh, dude. It was
But it's
so,
good.
Now that you've tasted.
I didn't,
rare
actually, I wasn't the buggy job the process. The mothers. were in the helicopter to go
I
out.
told Barry it was a great
But then they bring it
experience,
back
but I
and I
was
was
never working.
So I'd run out on the helicopter and grab them. You know, hook them and bring them back.
I don't think so.
Mostly, yes, those go back to work.
Actually, when he called me, it was at the end of the day when he called me, I made a climate
Man,
with the field manager.
it was about
He
a
called
month
me, he was
later.
like, hey, I want you to have his
The
ASD.
Wells
I'm like,
went to-
did you dial the right? I mean, I didn't even hesitate. Did you dial the right Todd? Did you mean to call Todd Curtis? He's like,
Wow.
paused for a
And that
minute.
was-
It's like,
that was her
no,
tracking,
I
so they ran
have to call
They
you.
ran him a helicopter. It's like
Curtis
they were
has a lot of stuff he's working on.
Corralling the crowd.
Okay.
Like that.
Yeah, I was reluctant.
Yeah, man.
Oh, they can
They can
jump.
clear it.
Just because I kind of felt like I was out of my depth, but actually after doing the job,
When they were flipping out. they
it
could
wasn't
jump
that
and
hard
clear
a
that.
job.
They can
It
compile.
really
it
isn't
on
that
the
much
other
different
side.
from being a DM.
And we're out there with,
Solving other people's problems,
so,
right?
but they're out there with, like.
But no, I don't.
Motocross.
Not
chest
sure that extra
protectors,
pay is-
gloves, and goggles, and that, because they kick you. And you- I mean, they're
Lakevie's
not-
quiet, right? It's not that we don't have our problems, but
And they would grab them. and
it's
they
just
would drag them
every-
back outside of the crowd.
it's the breadth of,
Wow.
you know, now all of a sudden instead of dealing with, you know, issues that surround one district and 125
Yeah, you can't
employees.
even imagine. that
You're
they
dealing
can
with
do
10
it.
districts and 1,600
Yeah, I
employees.
try to explain it.
The amount of just employee stuff you deal with is eye-opening. I mean, I've dealt with firm out on Lakeview, but man,
Detailed as the center manager. You know, I'm on line supervisor.
feels pretty good, doesn't it? Yeah, it's. No, Lakeview still hanging out. We've, Angela's getting her admin staff up to speed now. We've hired some really, really good people.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
so I wrote him back and said,
Retired.
man, you don't get anything funny.
Yeah.
Because they have no
Hates it.
people, they can't hire anybody.
Wants to come back. It's just.
He said they-
Pain in my ass.
They've taken in the winter because they can't hire people.
But we've hired,
They don't take anybody, they just close the road.
we had two archaeologists,
Nothing.
Carolyn, who
And
had
then they
worked
go
in
and pick up the
Burns.
wrecks when people
And she's had
violate
some
code or whatever.
family issues with elderly parents and some of those kind of things.
They've got jet plows.
Takes some time off doing that.
Last year, they were able to
But
hire.
we've got some really good
He's got
staff we've
everything
hired.
from the Humboldt County line. Humboldt
Just takes
County
time.
line, all the way over to the.
Way too much time.
All the way north of here.
I'm a geologist, so. I know close by.
She's really good.
Yeah. She's great. Too.
Onto our local high school.
So she did her geology.
Do like,
That's cool.
talk about field and careers.
Yeah.
and
Well,
opportunities.
she'll do
I did.
That too shall come to pass.
It's terrifying. when
I think they've terrorized poor Steve.
But
Block.
she told me I wasn't. She said that.
Steve still helps. Our new geologist answer questions. We,
Government.
yeah. He's got a lot of knowledge though.
Oh, he
We
does.
we finally we advertised our geologist 3 times. We're finally able to get somebody.
I can't fathom.
He's a PhD
This whole notion that,
from
you know, all the
Nigeria.
entitlements and so forth. I just can't fathom.
He's actually really good. He's got a good grasp of things. There's a little bit, he's got a really thick accent, there's a little bit of communication barrier.
400 million of this, and we have a heart attack.
I hate
But
it.
otherwise,
Life's rough. We'll get over it. He's got a good grasp of
They're
things.
not used to right
Phil
now compared to
Dion
what others are offering.
came back and spent a week with him, kind of getting him up to speed.
Yeah, I heard.
We want heart
Is
attack.
it DM or
Yes,
DDM?
nine, you know,
He's a DDM.
We're operating a certain amount, but they
Oh,
they
He
oh.
works
work
for,
for a company
Derek
that's offering $35 an hour.
So they-
Plus, you know, $150
Phil's figured
cash.
it out.
per hand.
Really?
yeah.
Okay.
I can't. keep-
You know,
There's no way we can
I had a
keep
long
it
conversation with
now
him, you know, that's the
for-
confrontation
for
thing,
what
right?
we
He's
said.
so
You
non-confrontational.
can't keep that. It's not-
And so when he was in one of the details, and like you, might have been after
Those
you
are
left,
having
was
lived
he
like
detail was at
those
AFM when you were there?
gigs last for
Under
you know, a
Jamie,
couple months.
assistant field manager.
You find another one, but if you can
I think
string
so.
together, which was what a lot of people.
So he did a detail as
That
an
means
AFM
you have
there
yourself a really good,
and
you know,
did a couple things that were very non-confrontational to his employees, but it put everybody else in a really bad spot with their
No, that's
employees.
actually where I think.
And so
we could do a better
basically,
job.
I had to sit him down, had a long conversation, and I just said, look, you've got to look at the bigger picture here. This isn't just about
I mean,
you.
that's how I came here.
And this is your biggest issue. You've got to get over it. You've got to figure out how to work on it. And so he did another detail in as an AFM plan
That was just the thought.
and
And I believe it.
did really well.
When I started.
They really liked him. He did really well. He was working on that kind of stuff. And so
Right
then
after
he
that, we had the
went to,
contract for America. And
I'm trying to remember the mother of this, just out of Sacramento.
20 days.
And
Took a relatively long.
I think he's doing well. I think he's probably got some good mentors that
Yeah.
helped him along.
With Clinton, right after the.
I talked to Derek the other day down in NorCal. Derek said he's doing
I
good.
was, so I was fresh out, had a baby in, a baby.
How are Angie and the kids?
No,
Good.
Yeah, 5.
Good.
And I.
Pam is moving back to Oregon.
Yeah.
So working on, she's gonna start a graduate program to become a librarian. Um, So I'm working on, my dad passed away last summer, and so my mom still lives at home. Caregiver there, but we own a house that's right next to my mom's.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing a bunch of work on the house, and Pam's gonna live there, while she's working on her research, kind of keep an eye on things for my mom. So she's doing good. Angie, of course, is still working out of Boise.
But $35 an hour.
She's actually home now. She's got the foster kids we had for a while.
That was my next question, nieces.
They're doing pretty good. They're having some struggles with mom. Mom's just not. She wants to be their friend, but not their parent. And now they're 11 and 12. So Angie's spending some time setting something straight with them, hopefully this weekend. And having a talk. But, yeah, things are going well. Connor's in Boise too. He's a lead pharmacy tech and big office pharmacist over there now.
We give
He's
them
getting ready to
our,
start.
we say, look, this is the job we're doing.
So we always work.
And by the way, let's talk about the DMV, let's talk about this, let's talk about all these things, because they might not make
See
that
how that
way,
goes.
we can get their codes and we start developing that thought process. Yeah, like we would go and work.
He wants to work up to helicopter, but he's gotta go through one first.
Here's where.
I think he's still trying to figure out where he wants to be. You know, it's great to have that idea now, but yeah, he's what he's doing. Exactly what he likes.
Perfect, before I.
He's independent enough. I think his sites are eventually maybe he'll make his own
Wow.
business somewhere. Whether it's, you know, with the charter.
I know some people in Asia.
BRI did this research.
Medical,
They were some of the leaders,
records
cultural program that had the contract. but they didn't have the dynamic.
Live files
Right.
all over Alaska.
Right, don't have to deal with
Yeah.
clients and That'd be perfect for him.
Drugs and treatments, and, you know,
He's done enough retail that he knows. When he was in college, he worked in an auto.
You're talking about engineers, right?
People are just horrible.
We pay engineers to get as well, right? So engineers, they can get better. They know what the nature of the business. In Nevada, mining.
Good to see you. Say hi to anybody that remembers me.
Oh, there's quite a few. Oh, well. See that. Good to meet you in person, Cal.
Yeah.
How was the trip there?
It was good.
So I just.
Contract service.
Air skills contract is.
It's about 4 hours.
Takes you to the district level, so they have them stationed in Portland, they have stationed in Seattle somewhere, and then farm it out, because that's the only way, personally, that's the only way. You were talking about this on front of it.
Yeah. It's funny. This 2 years of pandemic, you see here on the screen, and you can get a picture of your mind. But they just they see the person. Hopefully not what I expected.
It's dedicated air quality specialists, yeah, it's one state office, which can do all the air quality modeling, all that, it's just one person to do that. It's just the same process as the way EJ is supposed to be on stage, these things that we report on, these things that we get beat up on, these are the things that we need to standardize processes.
No, I think I'm with you. I said, no, why do they treat us?
We're almost afraid.
Well, like, I think that's a good grace.
Yes, sir, that's how it works. I'm sorry. I have a reputation for always having my hand up for a reason, that's well.
It's not just us, right? The state agencies and.
So, yeah, right.
Resident research.
Research leaders, but senior scientists. So they have to go with. Supervised,
That's.
which I can't supervise the same.
Great. We got in trouble for that, right? I was right. Well, but that was.
We have.
But then.
Great. Get feedback about it.
You've also got an AO that's.
Well, he just.
Yes, sir. We're Department of Security and they're agriculture.
So if there's no way.
You know, it's really difficult between July and next month. So. There's something here. We can just shuffle money around very.
Good man. Thank you.
So it takes some time. Agriculture is trickier. Should be interagency agreement. We can't do that directly. You have to set up.
Do you supervise the AO?
It's trickier. I wish we could, but it's not. I was like, coming to the government is really kind of in terms of hiring and retention. Before it was recognizing that everybody was for-profit enterprises, right? So each one working to a standard. You want to need our people to throw money at it, right? We throw money in benefits. I don't have that option here. The government. Actually, that kind of thing.
Well, the other part.
Man, my allergies.
That's over here.
Last year it wasn't nearly this bad though. I don't know if it's because it's been wet or something, but it was like a million times worse.
Saving the birds. It's just been colder all winter. And so
Because you changed the environment.
You
Sometimes your system
think
kind
it's a
of
delay?
figure itself out.
You know, my mom said that all the time. She's like, oh, your body takes 2 years to develop new allergies. And I'm like, so I was like, so I just need to move every 2 years.
There you go.
All right.
I'm fine. Ratadine.
Is that a pill? That's an allergy?
That's the generic. Claret.
Okay.
Generic claret.
Yeah.
Not perfect.
I know that stuff is supposed to be anti-drowsy, but it makes me drowsy still.
Yeah, well, I tried, yeah.
Not currently feeling very bored. Probably use that ring.
Yeah, I tried it like that. It just-
Didn't hurt. Yeah.
No, I get the drowsy.
Benadryl is the only thing that works 100% for me, but that puts me straight to sleep.
But
And then I wake up, where am I? What year is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Were they better than last time?
It's been a long time since I've had something. Felt to me like this. Don't worry, you know.
I realized. So I sat in the bar and I had these key lines, which was the guy. Oh, yes. No, I have. But tonight. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of these, we're gonna be ordering out. So there's chocolate.
chocolate mousse cake.
Yeah, I get last piece, it's last piece.
Okay, I'll fight you for it.
I
We
already,
could throw down.
I already set one aside.
Oh.
I had her key lime pie last night.
Ah.
That's the same one.
Yeah.
So as a,
We got a table.
as a connoisseur of music,
We have a table tonight.
Oh.
There's an actual restaurant area and it sounded like they might put us back there.
Yeah, there's a room that we're
And
gonna.
they don't have.
Yeah.
Enough money to do a bird.
You could ask them. They said if they'd known there was gonna be a big group, they would have. There's another little cafe here in town that's closed on Tuesdays, but it's open on Wednesdays. So if you're looking for another option.
Well, I had a burrito from the market. Okay, that's right.
I'm not sure you can expect a lot more here.
I can't slide out here on the bird. I've got her at 7 o'clock soon.
Okay. Well, if you're ready, funny how that happens.
She doesn't like.
So do you have some seats now? Before we had no. No.
Looking at the resume.
Oh, no.
You did that.
I mean, yes, sir. One thing how things work. And my current job.
Yes, ma'am. Those the fruit. I try to keep everybody healthy.
We worked with this all minded by time, and so he had a bunch of very driven, very type A, very aggressive people to handle that workload themselves. He selected for that. And so the way that we led that was it's financial, because he started to write how you about the it's beyond people who are very and that side of our mission. So the skills that I use to help manage the workload for one key person. And so learning how to plan, how to integrate themselves in that team and trust with my teammates was pretty. Yeah. And how to so it's very important to have how I operate. Private category, you can have that. Really hard to sometimes merge or maybe have one to the other. It's tough. And I can only imagine helping her even more so. Just for politics as well.
Until you hires them, and then you can. Make sure it's okay for everyone.
Explain that to something. Then you can be whatever. So,
It wasn't. Five.
All right. Yeah. I would like to get something. Never put on. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Thank you.
One thing we're finding.
Go up.
That's what is where we're based. I didn't always have jobs, but now with.
Oh, wow. It's
Well, when I retired, I'm not really retired. I Oh, it takes tag me, and then you'll learn how to chat, and I.
Everybody, we're ready to start again.
Somebody write her down.
Hi.
Projector cover.
Hi. Stan, you gotta hand it off to Daniel.
Josh, Jonah, right?
Jonah. Jonah's next.
Oh, Jonas,
Oh, we can switch though.
you're right. I got the wrong one queued up.
Oh, no, no, no.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. I apologize in advance.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Are we live?
Takes a minute for that. Catch up. So yes, now we're live.
Thank you, everybody, for coming back from lunch. I apologize in advance. My normally soft, delicate voice is a little bit more gravelly than normal. So bear with me as I stumble through. This presentation is to brief the RAC on the status of the Grassy Mountain Mine project located within the Malheur Field Office. And that's Vail District, BLM, Oregon, Washington. As it currently stands, we are finished with the NEPA pre-planning, so the baselines and the environmental studies. And those baselines have been finalized and accepted by the BLM. And the plan of operations has been reviewed and determined complete per the regulations. As Mr. Pikes noted, this isn't an approval. We just noted that every bit of what he showed you was in there in one form or another. Next slide, please.
Just a second, we got a technical issue going on.
Vanna White.
I know. No, somebody trying to join the meeting and can't figure out how to. Yeah, two people. This is why I need you on.
I can pull up.
You're supposed to be my Vanna White. I don't know. You're slacking, sir. Very good.
Okay,
All right.
bear with me. See if I can get us rolling here.
Did you say NEPA was complete or?
Pre-planning is complete. We're
Pre-planning.
moving into NEPA. So NEPA is so pre-planning is the part where we're doing things like our environmental studies, where we are identifying what scientific studies need to be done, and the proponent is doing those studies. And then we use those to craft the NEPA document, which identifies what the potential effects of the proposed action, in this case, the mine, would be on things like soil, air, water, archaeological resources, cultural resources, biological resources, et cetera. And those are the effects that we disclose in the NEPA document.
Bear with me. I'm still trying to get people into the meeting.
God, they're tardy.
I know. All right.
You have
let's,
to quit sharing your screen.
There we go. Okay. Apologies, everybody. Yes, we are recording. All right.
You gotta hit the share button, I think.
Thought I did. No.
Here, sure. See, right there in the bottom.
Right.
There you go.
Okay. Sorry, everybody.
I think you do a
And
great
then
job.
put it in presentation mode.
Right on.
There we
So
go.
I'll begin again. This presentation is to brief the RAC on the status of the Grassy Mountain Mine project within the Malheur Field Office, Vail District, BLM, Oregon, Washington. As it currently stands, NEPA pre-planning is complete. Baselines have been finalized and accepted by the BLM, and the plan has been reviewed and determined complete per 3009-411. This is a non-discretionary project, and we do have cost recovery for us, and it's not a fast 41. Next slide, please. So the Grassy Mountain Mine project is proposed by Calico. Oh, yeah, just pop it all on. There we go, right on. Is proposed by Calico Resources, aka Paramount Gold. The mine is seeking precious metals as opposed to industrial ones such as lithium or copper. The project, as you can see on this map, right on, is located approximately 22 miles southwest of our office in Vail, Oregon. By BLM standards nationwide, this is a very small mine, and they're proposing approximately 488 acres of surface disturbance total. Of that acreage, 469 acres are public, while 18.9 acres are private. Please note, this is not an open pit or a strip mine. The plan proposes underground mining, workings to access the resource. So on this map, you will see the purple box right there. That's their plan of operations boundary. And the large cherry stem, which you see up here, is their main access road trailing north up the main road. They will have maintenance responsibilities for that access road. They'll be widening it and improving it so they can get their vehicles past. Now, for the RAC, I want to contextualize this for you. So when I say very, very small by national standards, I want to kind of emphasize exactly what that means. So according to the numbers that the Grassy Mountain Mine's putting out, they're looking at 356,000 ounces of gold total for the entire life of their project, right? 356,000, that's the number that they put out on their website. My old office, Tonopah Field office, Round Mountain Gold, their Round Mountain pit, produced over 600,000 ounces in 1 quarter of 2021. So almost double in 1 quarter, right? Grassy Mountain Mine, 488 acres, right? In all my years of working in the mining industry, the smallest mine that I'd ever permitted up until this point was 630 acres, and that was Hasbrook Hills Mine, right? All the other ones, like the Scorpio Gold Mineral Ridge Mine, we're looking at 14,000 acres, right? Kinross Round Mountain Gold, we're looking at 11,000 acres. For this one, we're looking at 488,000. Now, I'm not saying that this isn't a value judgment or this isn't a judgment over environmental effects. I just want to give you context when I say nationally this is a very small mine. We are talking orders of magnitude smaller than standard mines that we would see in Nevada that also are looking for gold. Next slide, please. As stated again, and I will reemphasize, this is a relatively small mine by BLM Nevada standards. The proposed mine life, according to the current plan of operations that we have, is 7.8 years of actual processing, in addition to 2 years of pre-construction, 4 years of reclamation at the end, and 26 years of post-closure monitoring. So post-closure monitoring is the mine's closed, we are monitoring reclamation to make sure that we don't see any unanticipated or unintended environmental effects, leaching, water quality issues, weeds, etc. That's 26 years after the life of the mine to make sure that any reclamation is stuck. The plans identified will employ approximately 100 to 120 people. And as is common with projects of this size and scale, the plan identifies a local hire policy. So they're going to look to try and hire as many locals as possible. Overall, the project will use an industry standard crush and leach milling technology. Ore is going to be extracted from underground and will be brought up and crushed and then sent to a leach processing plant, which will operate 7 days a week. For those of you who are familiar with some mining areas, you know those big piles, out by Round Mountain, where there are these big kind of pyramidal piles and whatnot, heap leach piles, won't be any of those. That's not what we're looking at. We're not looking at a heap leach technology. All the leaching, all the gold processing is going to be in the mill, in the building. So there will be no heap leach or heap leach pads. The gold and silver will be extracted and separated and then removed at the smelter. The spent ore will be detoxified before being stored on site at a tailing storage facility. All told, industry standard mining and milling processes will be used throughout the project. Next slide, please. So the BLM's purpose and needs, what we're doing for this project is that we need to consider the proponent's plan of operations. And we also need to, as we learned earlier, prevent unnecessary or undue degradation to the public lands resulting from this mine. The need for this action is we have to comply with our current law and policy. I said this was a non-discretionary project. We have to process this plan of operations and make sure that doesn't result in unnecessary or undue degradation. Next slide. So the Vail District, we acknowledge that gold and silver are not listed on the USGS critical minerals list, such as copper, lithium, nickel, cobalt, all the others. However, gold and silver are used in a variety of industrial applications in support of green energy and climate initiatives. Silver is used in the production of PV panels, and gold is used in pretty much every circuit or transistor in any application. So, as with any project with kind of on-site chemical processing facilities, of course, soil, air, and water are going to be the primary concerns at the forefront of everybody's mind, the BLM especially. Prior to this stage in the permitting process, the proponents completed geochemical modeling of the ore. So what we do is we do what's called a cell hydration, where we crush up the ore and we run it through a whole bunch of water, and we test to see what chemical changes have occurred to the water as a result of this ore being dug up and exposed to air and water. The tailings do have the potential to generate an acid. So the proponents added a stage to the process in which the tailings are actually going to be treated with lime to increase the pH to a more neutral level to remediate any acid generation from those tailings. As I said, the proponents complete biological baselines for the project.
based upon pre-scoping, and I'm going to reemphasize this, based upon pre-scoping and public feedback we received, we anticipate that members of the public are going to be very interested on the impacts of the proposed mine on wildlife habitat. The baseline that we did result in response to those public scoping comments really emphasized sage grouse. The baseline indicates that the project area contains neither evidence of sage grouse nor habitat on which sage grouse would depend. There were very few raptor species, such as bald and golden eagles, observed. In addition, there was no pygmy or white-tailed jackrabbit habitat in no areas with the potential to concentrate roosting bat or maternal colonies within the project area. I also take very seriously the concerns of the tribal governments and tribal nations in the area. Ongoing communication with the Burns Paiute tribe is something that we've been working on. There's going to be ongoing communication. They've requested an ethnography be produced that we have been working with the chairperson on to get her thoughts on what will be in its appropriate size, scope, and content of this ethnography. And I really hope that ongoing tribal consultation is going to be fruitful in identifying concerns and really filling in knowledge gaps that we have in terms of environmental consequences of this action. I also brought up a potential for a site visit, actually to the site of the Grassy Mountain Mine with the tribal council. And I really hope that we get not just the Burns Paiute tribe, but any other interested tribal governments to join us as well. Three other impacts that we anticipate associated with this project include basic development of public lands. The proposed mine will require changes to travel management, including traffic changes on that big cherry stemmed road. There will be some changes to livestock raising in the area. And the mine has the potential to affect local dark sky or night skies and also visual resource management in the area. These areas are currently in VRM class 3 or 4. And it's been my experience in Nevada that any concerns with VRM or dark skies can be most efficiently dealt with through applicant committed measures such as dust abatement, dark night sky, BMPs, downcast lighting, and everything that we're familiar with, in addition to adherence to the BLM's proposed or preferred color wheel. Next slide, schedule. So this project will follow BLM standard procedures for our environmental impact statement development and public scoping. We anticipate that the record of decision will occur 2 years after the notice of intent is published in the Federal Register. It's not published yet. We started the groundwork for a formal public scoping period, in addition to any tribal site visits or public site visits, or maybe even RAC site visits that we will schedule later on as we move through the process. Next slide. So currently, we have 3 alternatives to the mine, and it's not public scoping. But if anybody has any other alternatives that you'd like to bring up when we get into public scoping, this is the time. Alternative A is a plan of operations as submitted by the operator. Alternative B is the plan with applicant committed measurement that would either resolve issues for unnecessary or undue degradation, or avoid, minimize, or mitigate any other environmental concerns identified during the NEPA process or identified through public scoping by the public. And then alternative C is, of course, a no action alternative. As can be, pardon?
No mine, no action alternative.
That means no mine. That's what we use to compare the environmental effects against. Yep. And so these are preliminary alternatives, and I expect that public scoping really will identify some additional alternatives that we can analyze. Next slide. So before I take questions, I have to admit that I am a idealist. I strongly believe that when we properly follow our NEPA processes and our internal BLM processes, we have an excellent system for informing the public of the impacts of our decisions on the landscape, as well as soliciting input on our decisions. So when we go out for public scoping, or when we go out for public comment, we really do want your thoughts. We're just not here today to hear your thoughts. We have formalized processes to hear your thoughts, and this is a really powerful tool for you to tell us your thoughts and to respond to the actions that we take. I'm in Vail, so I'm 22 miles north of Grassy, and I'm 3 hours north of where we are now. And so I believe very strongly that my specialists are subject matter experts in biology and archaeology and soil, air, water, but they are not experts in local knowledge or community knowledge or traditional knowledge that we need in order to make the best decisions that we have. So I do ask, when we do go out for any public comment or public scoping in the Malheur field office, I really would like and really request that we get that input from everybody at this table, as well as the local communities. That's the purpose of what we do. So now I will take questions.
Okay, Larissa, this is Mary. Virtual, the last two presentations, we've not been able to see them. So I just want to give you a heads up on that.
Okay. It says I'm screen sharing.
Larissa, this is Julie. You are screen sharing, but the slides don't advance. It just stays frozen on the first slide.
Oh.
Yeah, it almost looks like you didn't start the presentation. It's like you can see all the slides on the left-hand side and the first one, but it doesn't look like it quite got started for us.
Okay.
That's a weird, it's probably the screen sharing.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure the next presentation, to me personally, is pretty critical to be able to see everything. Thank you.
Do my best. I might have to ask y'all to help me troubleshoot virtually a little bit.
First, I think when you start the presentation and you put on for a slideshow, that's what messes up the sharing.
I think you're sharing the wrong screen.
A question.
Sir.
A few years ago, we had a presentation on Grassy Mountain. And the way they told the story was that they would put in this, what you're describing, and the processing that would take place was really planned for several other sites that have this unique geology.
Yep.
So is that really all going to happen in 4 or 5 years?
So what you're describing is what we call a custom mill, where somebody builds a mill and then other mines come in and the mill that's built process the ore for a cut. I've dealt with those before in Nevada, and there's a process that we go through in order to authorize something like that, right? We have not received this as part of an application. The application that we have, and Mr. Pike can corroborate, right? We do not have an application for a custom mill. Now, if down the road they want to go into a custom mill, or there's a need that needs to be met by other mines in the area, should they develop to process at this mill, then there's a permitting process that we would go through and we would again analyze to make sure that the byproducts of the other mill's geochemistry or the other mine's geochemistry fits in with what was analyzed and disclosed previously. However, we have not received an application and have no knowledge of that.
Well, and I don't know if anybody else remembers, but it's to me at the time, they said it would not be profitable if they put all the infrastructure in the processes without eventually going to the other sites.
I think, I don't know the full history of this project, but I think based on my knowledge, that's something that was discussed at one point, just to avoid putting the whole project on federal lands. But I think they decided to go with this proposal just based on economics.
Okay.
But that's not to say that they couldn't submit a plan for, a mill located entirely on private, or they would have to do that with the state. It wouldn't be a BLM issue. You see what I'm saying? But
and again, economics, especially in the mineral industry, change a lot. Right now, gold is around 1900, 1913 an ounce as of this morning. If it bumps up over 2000, over 2100 like it has in the past, that changes the conversation on the proponent's end. We'll keep processing the application we have. If it drops down below $1,600, $1,700 an ounce, maybe they have that question about profitability, but we can only respond and analyze the application that we have. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that, and I don't know how it's different than what Stan was asking, but you said they'll bring the gold up and they'll take it somewhere to separate it
To the
from the
mill.
rocks, and then you'll have piles. Where is that located? Is that on that 486 acres?
Yes, ma'am.
So there will be piles of tailings in the area after the gold has been removed.
That is an alternative. Yes, ma'am. Or that is something that we are analyzing. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep. Sir.
And the hole in the ground, I appreciate it's not a pit, but it's a hole on the side of the hill, maybe. Is that within the 488 acres, or is that
Yes, sir.
just for in addition?
Nope, that
All
488 acres of surface disturbance. Correct. Sir.
So, Burns is requested, there's no acres.
Yes, sir.
So,
And can you elaborate a little bit more on that ethnography? Will other Northern Paiute groups be involved in that?
So the BLM has entered into government-to-government consultation with the Burns Paiute tribe. So I don't feel comfortable talking about conversations at that government-to-government level. However, right now our conversation is involving the scope of that. Because the Burns Paiute tribe has requested that ethnography, we're talking about that ethnography with them in response to their government-to-government request.
Could you define that? I don't know what that word means.
Ethnography.
Yes.
It's a study of people's traditional life ways by talking to people who have that knowledge and are willing to share.
Okay, thank you.
Sir.
Do you consider these knowledges that has been presented to you?
Oh, of course. We're required to.
All these mines that have been protested or against in Nevada, they've gone through.
So
not a single one has been denied.
So I can only speak to projects that I've been specifically involved in. I can't speak. I've never worked anywhere else besides the Tonopah Field Office and the Vail District. We are required by the American Indian Religious Freedom Act, as well as some other acts and secretarial orders, to take into account a wealth of information that we get through any sort of ethnography, government-to-government consultation, or coordination that we have with the sovereign tribal nations that express an interest in our projects. And so, if we are provided with information by a tribal government or a representative of a tribe, a delegate representative of the tribe, that goes into our analysis just as would any other piece of information that we get through biological surveys or water quality monitoring, because it's part of our data collection in order to make the best available decision based on our laws, policies, and regulations.
Okay, as a prisoner of war, I feel like our voices are nothing. And so, our reservation here, the prison we're under, is run under government law. And it's written by the government. So it only takes one guy to say, okay, but what about the other voices inside the community? Are you actually listening to them? But you're not, because it only takes one man, one woman for you to get the okay from. So what about the rest of the public that says no? Are you taking that into consideration?
When we go through the process properly, we are engaging in we're engaging in a process-based process, and part of our process is to listen to the community, is to accept comments from the public in terms of scoping, as well as public comment on our draft environmental document, and to take a really good hard look at the input that the public has on what we do, because we are public servants and because the National Environmental Policy Act is designed to require the government to disclose the impacts of our decisions on the landscape. And so when we go through that process properly, we are absolutely taking that input in and considering it along with all of the other input that we have toward the best decision that we can under the current law, policy, and regulation.
But not one mine has been said, you guys have said no to, right?
So I can't speak for any of mine except for the ones I've specifically worked on.
You gotta know your history. I'm sure you know your history.
Yeah.
I just want to make a comment here. Like, it worries me as someone who has a PhD in anthropology and archaeology. I'm worried. If we think about what happened, I understand there was a jurisdiction discussion that went on earlier about that's in Nevada, we're in Oregon, right? I get it. But Thacker Pass has actually driven a wedge in between tribal nations, all right? So if there's a discussion, okay, about an ethnography at a site, all of the other Northern Paiute groups should be included in that discussion, please. That's a comment.
You guys pass this around.
And
right there, I'm putting our traditional foods. Those are our traditional foods that grow all over this area. Not all over, but there's some spots. You can't just transplant that plant into a greenhouse and expect it to grow.
And
those are our traditional foods.
And what is that plant?
That's a potato.
Potato. And sir, I hear your comment. When we go into public comment, as we continue through the tribal coordination process, if we get formal requests from another tribe to engage in government to government coordination, not through, one of my cultural resource specialists or not through a representative, but if we get formal requests from the tribal council to engage in government to government, we are required to, and we will engage in meaningful consultation as required by law to have that conversation about what we can do in terms of moving forward. Yeah. Are there any other questions?
Jenna, I think a little bit of the confusion is that, I'm the worst one to try to say this, but we have to ensure that the mine has to happen under our guidelines, but we can put lots of things in place to prevent it from harming the environment.
So as we move forward through the NEPA process, the plan of operations is not considered complete until it is signed and there's a record of decision, right? And so as we engage in public comment, as we go through the public process of this process, we have the ability to work with the public, to work with the mining companies, to work with all of our other cooperating agencies to change the plan in a way that is both agreeable to the mining company, they can accomplish their mission, as well as avoid, minimize, or mitigate any environmental or cultural or archaeological or biological concerns as they arise. We have that opportunity to work collaboratively as a group to do that if all parties are willing to sit down and work with us. I'm a big believer in collaboration, and I'm a really big believer in making sure that we have the right voices heard. What we need, though, is we need people to want to talk with us, and we need to work together, and we need to work in a good faith with each other, because that's where I'm coming from. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I just listened to the Thacker Pass arguments in the Ninth Circuit Court, and I can tell you there, BLM did everything in its power to claim, to the court and throughout the process, how, BLM had done things just the way it's supposed to. And to my mind, not being up to speed on tribal consultation, etc. To me, it's just shocking that BLM would rebut like the Burns Paiute tribe from, their whole arguments in this case, and basically say that, they don't count because they didn't comment back in 2005. In 2005, they sent in a card, reply to BLM saying that, that we aren't interested in your RMP. BLM now, the Thacker Pass mine used that as the excuse not to consult. So when you're talking to this room and telling people about how BLM cares, whatever, that to me, what I just heard today and what I've heard in the past, just proves to me that BLM just goes through the motions, and that's what happens.
And I just want to stress, I am writing the criteria D distinction for the Great Basin right now. And what that means is that it's a complete 14,000-year history of people in the Great Basin. And I want to stress that this consultation process is the future of archaeology. And that's where these litigations and these disputes come from. And I stress with my knowledge in this context we've just developed, right? Paiute people were some of the most highly mobile people on earth, okay? Please not let the fragmentation guide your consultation. And what I mean by that is all Northern Paiute groups involved, right? Just please, because Thacker Pass has divided 4 groups that shouldn't be divided.
Did the state of Oregon approve this? I know they have more authority to some extent than the BLM.
So we are in coordination with Dogami, Department of Oregon Mining and Mineral Industries.
Department of Geology.
Yeah.
And Mineral Industries.
Dogami, yes, and so we are in coordination with them. We have regular calls with them as they move through the process. I am not prepared to talk about their internal process. I can't speak for them. I just know that we are, and especially Mr. Pike, we're working through them and working with them as we move through the process.
So what Shoshone defense is finding out about pit lakes, they pull the dewatering the pumps.
Okay.
They go through, basically you're cutting an artery.
Okay.
So the springs will never come back up. So all these mines that are coming around us, we're drying out of earth. Okay, it's in history, it's there. Okay? You guys are from Nevada, you know it. You know the springs ain't coming back up. Because once you make a pit lake, once that water comes in, you gave it an out. Now it's getting lost to evaporation. The springs never come back up, right?
So I know you know, but this particular mine, we're not talking about a pit lake. There won't be a pit lake there. But
will they dewater?
They will be dewatering, yes, sir. And so they'll be dewatering using that water in their process, in their mill process.
And they reclaim that water after they're done?
No, that water is being consumed.
So they don't reclaim it?
I don't believe so. We're not reclaiming, correct?
Are you talking about recycling and then a surface discharge permit or something like that? I'd have to go back and look, but I don't think so.
Did I answer your question, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
We all set with the
Well, Julie or Mary, can y'all see the Caldera slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I try to click through one of them.
Okay.
We got it. We can see it
Yay.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, well, again, I'm Hayden Pike, geologist, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about lithium and some of the exploration that's been going on in the northern part of the McDermott caldera. Next slide, please. So what is lithium? You hear about it on the news, you know, it's in your batteries for your drills or your power tools, but what is it? So it's a soft, silvery white alkali metal. It has an atomic number of 3, and it's the least dense metal and the least dense solid element. So it has a density about the same as a piece of pine wood. So just imagine you're holding a piece of metal, but it's about the same as a piece of wood. So really light stuff. It has a variety of industrial uses, including lithium ion batteries, which is the big push these days. Lithium metal batteries, heat resistant glass and ceramics, lithium grease and lubricants, and then production of like iron, steel, and aluminum, both in production and as additives. It's really reactive and really flammable, so it doesn't occur naturally on the earth in its pure elemental form. It occurs, bonded to something else. If you ever took like a high school chemistry class or even a college chemistry class, one of the experiments you might see is they'll drop a piece of lithium in some water and it'll either pop and fizzle or explode. It's really reactive with water. And like I said, the big use these days is in lithium ion batteries. So the batteries actually use those lithium ions to store and discharge energy. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to talk really quick about the different kinds of lithium deposits because it occurs in several different forms naturally. So it occurs as in pegmatites, so like granitic deposits basically. The most common mineral you're going to find lithium in pegmatites is lepidolite. If you'll go ahead and click, I have a picture of lepidolite here. It also occurs in closed basin brine. So think Great Basin from Salt Lake all the way, out west to the Sierra Nevada. Basically a basin where there's no external drainage to the ocean. So if you go ahead and click, I have a picture of some basin brine evaporation ponds. This is from somewhere in South America. I think it's in Chile somewhere. So basically there's lithium contained in these really salty waters. And what they do is they pump it out of the ground and then they let it evaporate and they come in and collect the residue that's left, similar to like harvesting sea salt or something like that. And then they take it to a processing facility to further refine it. And then it also occurs in clay, most notably hectorite. Go ahead and click again. I have a picture of hectorite here. So the clay type deposits are what we see in the McDermott caldera. So both hectorite and then illite smectite clays are what companies are targeting out here. So the deposit we see up here on the north side of the caldera is the same style deposit, give or take, is what was seen at Thacker Pass. And then a couple more experimental deposits of lithium are oil field brines. So again, really salty waters, but this time related to oil fields and hydrocarbons. And then also with geothermal brines, so really hot water underground. If you go ahead and click again, I have a map of global proven lithium reserves here. So more than half of the world's lithium deposits are here in South America, between Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. I like this map because it shows you the different kinds of deposits. So, you know, you have your brines, your pegmatites, and your clays. I do want to point out some issues with the supply chain just right off this map. So, especially in South America, a lot of the brines are contained within national parks, especially Bolivia. So, you can imagine that development of lithium there is controversial. I mean, it would be like putting oil well in the middle of the Grand Canyon for them. Now, there's been talk of development, especially in Bolivia. I know Chile has some really strong development of lithium, but there's definitely some challenges on getting the lithium out of the ground in South America. In Serbia, Rio Tinto submitted an application to develop some of the clays containing lithium there, and their permit was recently revoked in 2022 by the Serbian government. I know there was widespread protests around that mine, and I think Rio Tinto was planning to fight it. But and then another thing I just want to bring up is the total estimated lithium globally is 90 million tons in all the deposits around the world. Now, obviously, that can change. Technology changes. There's always new discoveries, but that's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of the total lithium in the world. One Tesla uses about 63 kilograms of lithium, if you just take that as an example. So if you were to take all of the lithium in the world that's estimated today, that would be enough to produce about 1.4 billion electric cars. So if we're moving towards a green energy initiative, all of this is going to be really important. There's just not that much of it out there. In terms of what's needed for the battery supplies. And of course, battery technologies change through time. That's not to say that 20 years down the road, we'll be using lithium in batteries, but that's kind of where the technology is as of now. Next slide, please. So I wanted to talk real quick about the critical mineral list. So you may hear this in the news or in articles. So this was a list most recently published by the USGS and updated in 2022. So this came as a result of the Energy Act of 2020. So essentially part of this act said that the USGS has to update every 3 years the critical mineral list. So right now it's 50 mineral commodities that are critical to the US economy and to national security. Part of this push comes from concern around Chinese production of some of these critical minerals and sort of how we develop in the future as we're pushing towards some of these green energy initiatives. And I do have a link to the mineral commodities there if anyone wants to visit that website. And then on the next slide, I have a real quick video from ABC News. This is a really good video just to kind of sum up some of the critical mineral stuff. Okay, next slide, please. There we go. So I wanted to talk just real briefly about the geology in the McDermott caldera. So a caldera is a large volcanic crater that's formed by a major eruption, which leads to the collapse of basically the middle part of the volcano. So if anyone's been to Crater Lake, that's a great example of a caldera, forming. So the formation of the McDermott caldera was related to the Yellowstone hotspot moving across the North American plate. So you can think something that's sort of analogous today is the formation of the Hawaiian island chains. So as the Pacific plate is moving across the hotspot found near Hawaii, it formed all these different little islands. So same thing happened with Yellowstone. As it was moving across the North American plate, there was all these hot spots where we had volcanism and related features. So the McDermott caldera itself is one of the oldest Yellowstone hotspots. It formed roughly 16.4 million years ago during the eruption of the McDermott Tuff. The lithium associated with the sedimentary deposits within the caldera itself are found in illite, smectite, and hectorite clays, as I mentioned earlier. And the exact origin of the lithium deposits at this time is uncertain. I think the prevailing theory at this time is there was at least water in the caldera, whether it was a contiguous lake or multiple lakes within the caldera that refined this lithium, and as the water was evaporating, it concentrated it into these pockets. So I have a couple figures here if you want to go ahead and click. So this is a great image that shows the Yellowstone hotspot tracking across the North American plate to its current position today. So, the volcanism started right in this area in the hotspot. So it's pretty cool. And, you can follow it out this way towards Yellowstone and see some of the volcanic features, along this way as the hotspot was migrating. This image is a little busy, but this is a good image to show the approximate outline of the caldera itself. So I don't remember the dimensions exactly off the top of my head. I want to say it's like 40 miles long and maybe 22 miles across at its widest point. We do have some of the mines noted on here. So like Thacker Pass is down here at the southern end. We have the Brett's mine and the Opalite mine here at the northern end, northern margin of the caldera. This wider line here is the approximate outflow of the McDermott Tuff. So as there was volcanism in this area and eruptions, this volcanic ash would have rushed out laterally from this area of volcanism. Next slide, please. So this is what I was talking about, the formation of a caldera. So essentially you have some sort of magmatic body, lava essentially, and you get an eruption, and as that chamber collapses, you get the collapse of your volcano and the formation of a low spot within the middle of it. And typically, you'll see some sort of lake, whether, again, like I said, it's a contiguous lake or multiple lakes within your caldera, depending on the size and topography. Next, please. So just wanted to go through real quick some of the exploration we've seen on the Oregon side of the McDermott caldera. So all the exploration in the area have been using rotary core, diamond core drilling techniques. We currently have 3 companies out here with interests who have been operating under notices. And they've been predominantly exploring for lithium. Some proponents have been targeting uranium as a secondary resource. If you know anything about the history of the caldera, there was a lot of interest in uranium, like back in the 60s, thereabouts within the caldera. So some of the proponents are targeting that as a secondary. So High Tech Minerals was the first that we had active on our side. So they've been active under notice level activity since 2018. They've had several notice modifications. And underneath those notice level activities, they had 67 permitted drill sites, 1 laydown area, and 18,000 feet of overland travel. They have submitted a plan of operations for a larger exploration program. This exploration program proposes drilling of up to 267 sites with sumps, 30 miles approximately of roads, and the construction of one 300 by 300 foot laydown area where equipment is stored. Next slide, please. So we also have Oregon Energy, or Aurora Energy Metals. They've been active since 2022. They've been exploring under a notice with one modification. And underneath that notice, they're allowed up to 68 boreholes with one laydown area. And they're targeting lithium with uranium as a secondary target. And then FMS Lithium Corp has been active since 2022. As of the last time I spoke with them, they were still waiting on state approval from Dogami for their notice. Dogami has like a parallel permitting process to us. Similar kind of deal where you submit information to the state, they tell you if there's everything required, and then you get approval on the bond. So as of the last time I talked with them, they were still going through that process. And underneath their notice, they have 46 drill sites and one laydown area. So I just want to talk a little bit about the drilling and kind of how it works, since that's the primary way that they're exploring for the minerals in the area. So one of the ways they do it is with rotary core drilling. So essentially you have a sharp rotating drill bit on the end of a line of casing, and you have downward pressure via impact hammer. And as you're impacting it and drilling, it'll cut through the substrate. So casing may or may not be used depending on how competent the substrate is. I don't know whether or not the companies out here are using casing. I'm guessing they aren't. And then there are several variations of rotary drilling. The primary differences are going to be how cuttings are removed from the borehole, and then whether or not you're using mud downhole. And then diamond core drilling, I should emphasize, so cuttings are essentially little fragments of rock that you get as materials coming back up out of the borehole. So with diamond core drilling, you're able to actually remove whole cores of rock, or approximately, again, depending on how competent the substrate is, how welded it is, it can crumble, But this technique is commonly used in the mining industry, like I said, for extracting core samples. The bits are impregnated with diamonds within the steel. So, obviously these are really hard and able to cut through the substrate pretty easily. And then the core samples are returned to surface using a wire line. So if you click, I have a figure of that. So basically it's a string with some equipment attached that goes down hole, and you essentially pull the cores out. And this technique does use drilling mud down hole. And I believe that's it. Any questions? Yes?
On your map with the pretty circles?
Yeah.
The red Oregon, it's red, which means it's the per.
The pegmatite?
Yes.
Well, that's not for Oregon specifically. It's just
Well,
for
no,
the
that
US.
area.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's for the US as a whole. So the US has all three types. It has pegmatite, clay, and brine. So the circles just had to fit on the map, basically. I'm not saying they're in Oregon, they're within the US as a whole.
Oh, okay, so our brown in southeast US is actually the whole US.
Yes.
Oh, okay, because I was like, this shows it's red and you're telling me that's
Yeah.
clay, so I was confused. Got it. Thank
There's
you.
clays and brines in Nevada and Oregon.
Yes.
I'm sure there's probably pegmatite deposits too, but I don't know if any companies have been targeting.
Okay,
those.
I just thought it was actually over where the
Yeah.
areas were.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Clear.
And you say independence in China. Lithium America has 25% owned by China. Where's your independence? That's confusing.
Well, that's a directive, a government directive, you know what I mean? So I can't speak on that situation specifically.
Board members from China sitting on the board. China owns 25% of that mine. So all you guys that are American, flag waving America and want their freedom from China, Lithium America is sending their minerals to China. You guys all not understand that?
When you were talking about doing it with the deposits, where you mentioned I don't keep it living or sacrifice that on the lithium deposits protected areas. Well, often whether an area is a national park or protected area depends a whole lot on the politics and the relative values society has at a particular point in time. And when you look at what's at stake here, about to be destroyed, and is being destroyed at Thacker Pass. You look at the Montana mountains, you look at McDermott Basin, you look at portions of the Trout Creeks. You have the makings of an area that should be a nationally recognized protected area. The birth of the Yellowstone hotspot, with all the important wildlife habitat values superimposed on top of that. And given what's going on with sage grouse, you have all these fires. BLM has been an utter failure at restoring habitat, especially lower elevation sagebrush habitat after fires. You now have an island, continuous island of sagebrush habitat left, surrounded by big burned areas. And that's what's now being targeted in the McDermott caldera for destruction by lithium. So in my mind, this constitutes value significant enough to the national park.
Okay, ma'am, we have a public comment period. This right now, we're just having questions and answers.
Anyone else?
Thank you. Let's proceed to the Lindsay's report.
All right, Amber, hop over here and make sure I'm doing this right. We can move a chair over here for you. Okay, Zoomers, bear with me.
I don't screen share it yet. Oh, yeah. So if you, oh, you, is that the, no, that's the new first one. Here, this one's the
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead. Just go down. Yeah.
Okay. And let's stop sharing this. In slideshow. So minimize that one. Oh, here's your slideshow for Genevieve.
I think it was on that internet browser there.
Yeah.
Why is it, go back to the file explorer and right click on it. Open with.
Yes.
Search, choose another.
And then perhaps.
This is the path going to send out. It's a PDF.
Oh, it's a PDF. Oh,
Okay,
well, then it should be on Edge.
here. So just do.
Well, Acrobat.
And then you shouldn't have a problem now if it's because you're not gonna open the slides, so you should just be.
Page 3.
Yep, and,
Right.
and just share it as is.
Right.
The biggest thing, I would just make sure that each slide is in there.
Stay close. Don't leave me in.
Oh, yeah, you have to. Here. Sorry, you guys.
Just open it with internet browser, I guess.
Let's say it's gonna take a second because it's gonna pop up that weird. So you just have to put your information in.
Oh,
Worry too, because
Just run it in Edge.
just.
okay, we got way too many things going on here. Okay, so just.
Oh, do you have another question?
Well, I was just curious, they're just pulling it out and taking it off the side. I guess like it's like so in this situation, there's no cyanide involved.
Are you talking about the exploration that's
Yeah.
going on right now?
So you're just talking about the exploration,
Yeah.
not the actual process.
They're locating it. They're
Okay.
delineating the resource, determining what concentrations are, where it's at.
Okay.
So it's not like Thacker Pass, that's an approved actual mine for this lithium clay. So they have processing facilities on site, I believe. I don't know the full details of their mine, but
Okay, so you're just focusing on the exploration.
yeah, because that's what's happened so far. That's what's going on right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a question. Why can't they do helicopter drill?
Do you guys want to answer that? It's probably too
It's
expensive.
very, very expensive. And, you know, so that's one of the it's mainly used in areas where it's very hard to access the drill sites, you know, like very, very steep terrain. Maybe Alaska or something where you've got to cross a lot of deep rivers or so on to get to the site. Parts of Canada where there might be, particularly in the summer, there might be huge areas of swamp that prevent access. That's probably, you know, but mainly terrain is the issue. It's normally used in areas where the terrain doesn't make it, normally makes it impossible to access by a vehicle.
Okay, hold that thought. Zoom, can you hear us or can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have a question?
Hi, my name is Tanya Archuleta. I'm a resident out of Fort Ranger Reservation. I'm also an NWCA Triple council member as of February of this year. And but living out here, I've been here about 7 years. I was born and raised in Winnemucca, and so I'm born and raised Northern Nevada girl. And I haven't heard anything about EMS services and things like that. Has that been taken in analysis in your guys' project?
Like if someone had an emergency in the field and they needed additional impacts to EMS, is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yes.
Well,
because I just want you guys to know that the Humboldt General Hospital down in Winnemucca takes an hour and 15 minutes to come here. And I had completed an EMR course. It was a 10-week course and it was really informative, and I really encourage anybody who lives in a rural area to take it because it's life-saving techniques when you don't have a hospital near you. And that's a big concern that I have for your workers.
Sure.
And well, anybody, you know, that just keep in consideration or keep in the back of your head. Jordan Valley is where Jordan Valley is, and Winnemucca is where Winnemucca is. And being so rural, I mean, we do not have an emergency medical response at all. I mean, you're lucky if we have 2 BIA officers that are their service area is in Fort McDermott Reservation, but they also make calls in Yamba, and they do transfer inmates to Par Boulevard in Reno. There's 2 BI officers, and they are trained for state CPR and all that. And we do have a wellness center with a registered nurse practitioner, but those are business hours. So I just wanted you guys to just take in consideration if there's were to be any accidents or anything. I mean, it does happen. I have recalled living here and there was traffic backed up from Highway 95 because there was a Red Mountain Travel Plaza gas station. I was a former cashier there, and we were wondering why there was so many cars piled up, but there was a fatality that had happened due to hydroplaning the cars. Denio Junction turn right there is notorious for fatalities. Unfortunately, if you do not know the area, it's an open range. You know, people from California or wherever, they're so used to passing anybody, jamming out to their, you know, music, but they don't realize, you know, this is open range and you got semis and different people. They're not cautious as much as they should be.
You're making a very good point.
Yeah, and also the other point, which is, you know, it's a very good point, is the lack of cell phone coverage as well in a lot of these areas. So if somebody does get in trouble, it's very hard for them to alert, you know, and send for help.
I hope it's okay for me to share this, but I'm a personal care aide for my mom. My mother's a stroke victim, and thankfully, like I shared, Humboldt General Hospital, their care flight, it was a choice between Humboldt General Hospital and St. Alphonsus Hospital in Boise. Go figure, St. Alphonsus is 45 minutes away. So they came and got her and saved her life, so she's able to be here with me today. And so I really, it's really hard. I mean, I just want you guys to understand, and any future references, when you bring people or anyone out here, you gotta think about the medical services as well. Is there any? There's not. So, you know, is there anything we can do about it? You know, I'm gonna keep asking everyone until I get answers, but you know, if I keep asking, maybe you guys will ask and maybe something, a ripple effect will
So
happen.
the question I'll ask you, do you think it would help, I don't know the answer, if there's a medical centre here in McDermott?
What was that?
A medical centre, you know, a fully equipped medical centre here in McDermott.
I believe, yes, I believe that an emergency, if we had an ambulance service here, an emergency medical responder team, I mean, they have to figure out where to live, you know, I mean, there's not really jobs here to provide for yourself, like a full-time thing. I mean, when it comes to funding and stuff like that, it's such a unknowledgeable thing that is being learned still. But I'm letting you guys know. Yeah.
So I realize we started with a question and it was a good one, but we've kind of crossed over into public comment. And we do have an opportunity for you to do that after a while.
But very good points. So are we good to go?
She had a question.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know.
Sorry.
Regard to once in development, there's been another and they're on safety. And so they're very, very concerned with your safety and then the that you're talking about, especially them as well. So city is
Yeah. Okay.
So, all right, thanks everyone. So my name's Lindsay Dudfield. I'm the founder of Jindalee Resources, and it's our US subsidiary, High Tech Minerals, that is exploring for lithium in the McDermott Caldera. And Daniel Pike's stolen my thunder.
Sorry.
We should have coordinated.
Yeah.
But you've done a brilliant job in introducing, lithium and the formation of lithium deposits and so on. So, and as you can probably tell, I'm Australian. Jindalee is listed on the ASX. So I brought my interpreter, Brett Marsh, who is American.
Yeah, I speak Australian as well.
So Brett's our VP Exploration, and so you know, anything you don't understand that I'm saying, Brett will interpret for you. So the McDermott Caldera, our McDermott lithium project's located, as Daniel said, in the northern part of the caldera. It's a sediment or a clay hosted deposit. The sediment's hosting the mineralisation, the outcrop. This is then those low coloured hills here. That's about 100 feet from the valley floor to the top of that mesa. Probably the other thing, and then they continue below surface. And we know that because we've drilled holes, more than 100 feet deep to try to find the extent of the mineralisation. And the other thing to note is, and for those that are going out on the tour tomorrow, I'm not sure exactly where you're going, but you may well see these waste dumps here. These aren't on our ground. They're just outside our claim boundary, but they're the old opalite mercury mine that closed in the 1940s. What else to point out? That's probably it really. So next slide, please.
All right.
Okay, so as I said, High Tech Minerals owns the claims, and it is a wholly owned subsidiary of Jindalee Resources. As I said, we're listed on the Australian Securities Exchange, the ASX. We've been listed almost 21 years. We'll have our 21st birthday on the 11th of July. So, in a couple of weeks' time. High Tech is a US company. Its registered offices in Reno, Nevada. It's registered to do business in both Nevada and Oregon. It's all of our activities in the caldera are run through high-tech minerals, high-tech employees. It engages our consultants and contractors. It pays tax in the United States. So what's really important to point out right from the outset, is we're an exploration company still. We've heard talk of Grassy Mountain and Thacker Pass, and Brett has put a slide together, which I think is particularly useful because it explains kind of the 4 stages of a mining project. So you start out if you like, phase 1, which is the prospecting, the exploration side of it, where it's data collection. So you're collecting as much data as you can to de-risk the project, to see if you've got an economic project, and to work out the best way to hopefully develop that project. But really the meaty part of the development side of it is the second phase, and that's where Thacker Pass and Grassy Mountain are currently. So we're still in the first phase, and as it said on the slide, that can take anything between 5 and 15 years, depending on the style of mineralisation, the economic cycles of minerals, because minerals can be quite cyclic in their nature, and with that, if you're reliant on public investors to fund your exploration activities, you need favourable investment cycles as well as, and they normally follow metals cycles. So we've been going for 5 years now. So we're still in that phase 1. So we're in the advanced exploration stages. Next slide. I won't. Stephen's done a really good job covering this, lithium 101. But what I will say is lithium it's the lightest metal. It sits, as he said, its atomic weight's 3, so it sits underneath hydrogen on the left-hand side of the periodic table. What's very important about it is it's got an incredibly high charge and power weight ratio, which makes it really, valuable for particularly for mobile electrical devices. So things like your cell phone, they're powered by lithium-ion batteries, and increasingly as the climate crisis. A reaction to the climate crisis, we're seeing EVs replacing internal combustion engines to try and obviously reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This slide here shows, this is from the US Department of Bureau of Transportation, internal combustion engines, so your gas-powered cars. Basically, you can see them, sales of their new sales trending down to, it's estimated, it's probably a little bit ambitious, that there will be no new internal combustion engine cars sold in the United States by 2035. And they will be replaced by basically EVs. And so layer on top of this the demand for storage batteries to store renewable energy like solar and wind. And you can see why there's such an incredible demand for lithium. There's another little kind of fun fact in there that the first lithium-ion battery was commercialized by Sony in the early 1990s. 2015, only about a third of lithium was used in batteries, and by the end of last year, this had risen to 82%, and is expected to increase further. So that's kind of like if you like, the commercial background to why there's so much interest in lithium currently. Next one. And why in the United States? Why are we, an Australian company, exploring for lithium in the United States? Partly, obviously, it's the demand, projected demand for the metal as part of the, obviously reducing greenhouse gas emissions to achieve net zero by 2050. But it's very important, and the US has really woken up to this. 80% of battery cells are made in China. And there's a really big push, obviously, for the US to be self-sufficient as close as possible in critical minerals, including lithium. the United States currently produces around about 5,000 tonnes. It's only got one lithium mining operation. It's a brine operation in Nevada. It's called the Silver Peak operation. It's owned by a US company called Albemarle. That produces approximately 5,000 tonnes of lithium carbonate equivalent, or LCE. But all through the United States, there are battery factories being built as part of the push towards electrification of the US, both EVs and energy storage. And it's one of the, the forecasting groups, if you like, that studies the supply demand in critical minerals, including lithium, has forecast that the United States will need about 600,000 tonnes of lithium carbonate equivalent by 2031. Well, that's not very far away. And that's why there's, we're seeing Jennifer Granholm, that quote there, we can buy electric car batteries from Asia, it's China, clearly, or we can make them in America. And obviously the United States has decided that they want to make them in America. Next slide. So McDermott Caldera, for those that are going out tomorrow, you'll basically head west along the Cordero mine, and then at the Wilkinson Ranch turn left, and you follow the disaster peg road. So the project's about 22 miles as the crow flies from where we're standing today. Next slide. And Daniel sort of outlined the rim of the McDermott Caldera. Yes, it is. It's around about 28 miles. In fact, it's probably further than that. Actually, it's probably closer to 30 miles north-south and about 22 miles wide. And so you have a very good summary of how the crater, lake formed from the collapse of the magma chamber underlying it. There's a little cartoon down the bottom there, which Dr. Tom Benson from Lithium Americas, who studied this style of mineralisation in great detail, has put together about the genesis of these style of mineralisation. But probably the most important thing was this was a closed system. So none of the water, if you like, within the fluids within the crater lake could escape. And as the volcanics, and I should point out that this area's got an incredibly high, it's kind of geologically unique. It's got a really high concentration of lithium within the volcanics that were erupted back in, just over 16 million years ago. And in fact, here looking at the two largest lithium deposits in the United States. So Thacker Pass, it's got about 19 million tonnes of lithium carbonate equivalent in resource. And this project, Jindaly's McDermott project, is around 21.5 million tonnes in resource, lower grade Thacker Pass. And also, as we've pointed out, Daniel's pointed out, and also, in my first slide, there's significant mercury deposits located around the northern rim of the Caldera, and there's also a uranium deposit that sits up in here, owned by Aurora Energy. Next slide. So I really want to talk about the exploration we've done to date to give the committee a bit of an overview on what we've done and what's planned in the exploration front for the next 2 to 3 years. So we're talking about exploration. We're not talking about mining, as I said in that very early slide. We're still at the advanced exploration stage. So we identified this opportunity in early 2018 and basically sampled, these faces along the mesa there. And that's one of our very early photographs from that trip with some of our samples of the sediments, and they came back anomalous, strongly anomalous in lithium. So we registered high-tech minerals and staked the claims, which were granted in June 2018. In August, September 2018, we drilled 4 proof of concept holes, very broadly spaced. And we had drilling issues that meant we didn't get all the way through the sediments, but we got enough out of that first program to be sufficiently encouraged to raise some money from investors to go to the next stage of exploration. And so, as it says there on the right-hand side, we've, over the last 5 years, we've drilled 62 holes on the project, and the last round of drilling, which took place second half of last year, was designed to increase our confidence in the resources that we had. So, you know, we were sort of had what's called an inferred resource, where the holes were basically spaced about 800 metres apart. So I did the conversion, what's that, about 50, half a mile apart. And we wanted to infill that to about a quarter of a mile apart to get more confidence and also more data, more samples that we could do some metallurgical test work on and so on, to find out the best way to extract the lithium from the rocks. And this is all part of the you know, getting enough data to be able to undertake a study, you know, that determines whether it's worth that, you know, going to the next stage of exploration. So here you can see I think that's the very first hole we drilled actually, back in 2018. And here's what the drill core looks like as it comes out of the hole and's been basically put into these paper core or cardboard core trays for, you know, the geologists to log. Okay. So these are some, and this as it comes out of the drill. So this we're talking here that. So Daniel mentioned two styles of drilling, RC and diamond, or core drilling. So that's what the core sample looks like as it comes out of the hole, and then it's kind of split up into sections and put in the core trays, the cardboard boxes, and then they're, you know, saved as a record. And then we also sample the core, and you know, that's submitted to a commercial laboratory where we analyse it for lithium and a whole bunch of other elements. So yeah, there's so core holes that we did, and also reverse circulation RC holes we drilled last year. And as I said, it's all about data gathering, you know, on the information on the geology and on the chemistry of the rocks. And also, you know, we're one of the drilling methods we're looking at trialing is sonic. It's a relatively new process, as it says there, but it's got the advantage that, you know, you use minimal to no water as part of your sample collection process. Okay, so next slide. So as we complete each program, we commence the reclamation process. So immediately the hole is finished, we plug the hole, and there are very strict rules on what we can use to plug the hole. And then usually at the end of the program, we bring in contractors to help us rehabilitate the drill site. So you can see here, you know, this is on our ground. This is a track that's being used to grade, and then also there's a little seed distributor sits on the back of that ATV, and then you know, and it's an approved seed mix. That, you know, is specified by the BLM that we have to use. So, you know, we're not using seeds that are not native, if you like, to the area. And also you can see there's a wattle on an access track. This was a historic access track. This is not ours, but, you know, it's part of our, you know, if you like, looking after the environment as we explore. We've installed that. And the whole idea is, you know, and also there's bonds that are imposed by both the BLM and Dagami to make sure that if, you know, we don't do the reclamation to a standard that's acceptable, those bonds are then able to be used to make sure that an acceptable level of reclamation is achieved. And as we progressively reclaim after each program, you know, some of those bonds are then released to us. Okay. So here's an example of some drilling that we did last year. Actually, this is the main access track to two areas that we drilled. And so that photograph was taken in October, and obviously, you know, earlier this month, you can see where the ATV has gone along and it's sort of basically started to prepare the surfaces and plant seed. And you can see on the sides of the track there now that you're getting revegetation occurring. Where we have created tracks to get into areas to drill holes, we obviously then reclaim those as well. And here's another example of an area which is where the reclamation process has started, and despite it being a very cold winter, and so the seeds were slow to germinate, we're starting to see good regrowth starting. And as it says there, you know, we try to restrict access by third parties to these areas that we're reclaiming to give them maximum chance of you know, winding up with a landscape that, you know, after 5 years or so will look pretty much like we hadn't been there. Next slide, sorry. So again, some examples of the process. So, you know, some of the earlier areas, you can see the regrowth has really started to take effect. You know, as we get, you know, towards more recent disturbance, then it takes a lot, you know, longer. So, you know, if you go out to some of the sites that we cleared last year, you're getting that sort of thing. You're getting regrowth started, but it's you know, it's going to take, as I said, around 3 years certainly before probably BLM will consider returning some of their bonds to us. And that'll depend on the weather as well. So again, you know, same story. You know, this one here was drilled. This site here, sorry, that was drilled in 2000 and what's that? 2000, and 2.5 years on, it's you know, starting to look pretty good. So again, there's a drill site, you know, from last year, what it looked like prior to the rig moving onto it. And because you've got, you know, heavy machinery and whatever, you need to clear a reasonable area to, you know, so from a safety point of view, so the drillers can operate safely. And then you can see the reclamation is, you know, there's the revegetation has started. Okay, so next slide. So what's coming up? So we've currently got an exploration plan of operations before the BLM. So even though our claim area is larger than the 7,200 acres shown there, the area has been, as you like, broken up into, you know, several areas, and the key area is this project area shown there in the black outline, which is obviously different to our claim boundaries. That's got, you know, 7,200 acres, as it says there. We've proposed up to 262 holes, 99 approximately acres of disturbance. So that represents just under 1.5% of the total area there. And also to save us having to cart water from McDermott to site and you know, dusting up the road and the potential for you know, maybe some sort of accident if it, you know, if the water truck, you know, encounters somebody, you know, driving down the middle of the road or the wrong side of the road or whatever. We've also applied to have a water well permit as well. So, you know, on site, so we can then access the drilling water from that. And under the proposed plan of operations, and I say it's a proposed plan of operations because it hasn't been, you know, this is the process that has to follow before it's approved. We're planning to drill for 5 months of the year, starting all going well in the second half of next year. Next slide. So that is again designed to further infill the drilling to get even more confidence in the resource that we've got. Again, to obtain more samples of metallurgical test work so we can work out the best way to extract the lithium from the sediments. And obviously that'll be done in a way that causes minimal impact on the environment. And as, you know, we want to earn our social license to operate, and so collaborate with all of the stakeholders. So we'll be undertaking our first financial study on the project. It's called a preliminary or pre-feasibility study, PFS. We hope to have it finished by the end of this year, and that will be used to guide further work on the project. And obviously I talked about the exploration plan of operations, phased infill drilling for the most part, using, as I said, RC, core drilling, or possibly sonic, and either carting the water from McDermott or preferably acquiring it on site through a limited permit. And as I said, we're bonded both by the BLM and by the Army, and obviously part of the approval process places strict restrictions on where you can drill, so that you minimise your impact on wetlands and habitat and any cultural resources that have been identified. So just to summarise, climate change obviously is, and this globally has focused attention on reducing carbon emissions, and with that comes the use of renewable energy and particularly EVs and energy storage. And so that globally is leading to a significant increase in demand for lithium, and which is only expected to continue as we saw the adoption of EVs increases globally, and also as we need large stationary storage batteries for storing renewables. And obviously, as we said, President Biden has pledged net zero by 2050, and has also made money available under the bipartisan infrastructure bill and also the Inflation Reduction Act to try and achieve, help the US to achieve energy or critical mineral self-sufficiency as close as possible. And obviously there's a lot of, the car makers are already gearing up to have a substantial part of their new production as EVs. But as I mentioned, currently the US imports almost all of its lithium, and most of that comes from China, where its most global raw lithium is processed into batteries, lithium-ion batteries. And so the US is very vulnerable to supply chain disruption. And there is bipartisan support, obviously, for the development of critical minerals projects in the United States. And the US, the Inflation Reduction Act is actually forcing US automakers to source their critical minerals locally. And so they are building battery factories in conjunction with Korean, Japanese, mainly battery makers. And so sediment hosted deposits, will have a role to play, obviously, in making the US self-sufficient in lithium. So, any questions? Yes.
You're confusing about investors and independents, stakeholders. Where do these investors come from? Who are they?
At the moment, they are mainly Australian and American investors.
Are you limiting these investors just to the US to be independent from China, or do investors come from anywhere in the world?
We have no Chinese investors on our list.
No, but if an investor wants to invest into your company, are we not getting investors from China, or maybe there's a Chinese businessman who wants to invest into your company?
Yeah, okay, all right. No, all I can say is we want to register very carefully, and also I can tell you that we had approaches from Chinese battery makers very interested in this project, and I basically said to them, I'll be very, very surprised if you are allowed to invest in this company or this project.
So
and they went away.
It's going to be sold on the Wall Street. Will it be there?
Look,
being sold.
You're getting a long way ahead of it. But if I had to guess where it would be sold, there are so many battery factories currently being built in the United States that are going to be needing.
But your business model, where this is going to go, right?
No, we don't know, but we can make reasonable assumptions.
Yeah, and then your carbon emission, what do you project that you're going to be, your carbon emissions per year?
You're going to have to wait until we've done the pre-feasibility study at the end of December.
Well, Pass is projected, you said, is projected to push out 150,000 plus tons of carbon emissions per year. And you could be bigger than them, right?
Let's just see what happens.
Per ton? You just said you're at 21.5 million per ton.
Yeah, no, that's the size of the resource. But resource converting to reserve, which then converts to lithium carbonate produced in a mine, you get a diminution as you go. And also it depends on the project economics. As I think I said, the grade at Thacker Pass is higher than the grade we've got here.
So will you be burning sulfur?
Well, the feasibility study, pre-feasibility study will likely look at having an sulfuric acid plant on site, similar to that proposed at Thacker Pass. In the first instance.
And particulate matter, 2.5, what does that mean? Well, how big is that?
Sorry, I don't understand your question.
Particulate matter in the air, 2.5, the emissions that are in the air.
Where did this number come from? I'm sorry, I don't.
Thacker Pass is, they're projected at, particulate matter in the air after the burn of the sulfur is at 2.5.
Look, I can't comment on somebody else's project.
But yeah, you just relate yours to Thacker Pass, as you just said.
No, you're
going to be bigger than Thacker Pass.
If I may, we're talking about an exploration project only. The Bureau of Land Management only has an exploration proposal from Jindalee right now. We're not really talking about a development because we don't have a development proposal. And so I would request that we keep the discussion squarely in the realm of exploration, because that's the only thing that we have here in front of the BLM.
And I have a question.
Sorry, this is Lady Aiken here first. Yes.
Have you aged any of the sagebrush you killed out there?
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
Have you aged any of the sagebrush
Aged
that
it?
you're drilling exploration?
No,
killed
we
out there?
have not.
Well, I think that's an important element of understanding how long it would take to actually reclaim an area. Understanding how long it would take to regrow a mature sagebrush community.
Yeah, okay, point taken. Sorry, this lady here at the front.
Yes. I go back to your slide that, and you touched on it in a response to this gentleman. 3.0 BTs.
Billion tons.
Billion tons
Yes.
is your estimate,
Yes.
and now you're drilling to see if that estimate is correct. How
Yes.
did you come up with the 3 billion
Okay.
estimate?
Okay. So what we did, we drilled, as it said, there's 62 holes, of which 61 holes intersected lithium mineralization. And kind of simply, if you can imagine a whole bunch of holes down here, and you've got within each hole, you've got a zone of lithium mineralization. What you do, you join up the dots basically, and you wind up with a volume of sediments that is anomalous in lithium over a certain cutoff grade. In our case, we used 1,000 ppm parts per million lithium, and you assign to that volume a specific gravity, a density measurement, which we measure as we go through. So now you've got a volume of tons, if you like, of material, and then you average the grade of those intercepts around from each of those points, each of the holes, and that gives you the average grade of the deposit as well. So that's why I was able to say to the gentleman that whilst we have a large tonnage, the grade of the lithium grade is lower than it is in Thacker Pass resource, for example.
So that 3 billion tons is based on your drilling.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, okay. I thought it was an estimate before
Yeah.
you even went in.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but that's a good point, because then when we infill drill, which is what the exploration plan of operations is proposing to do, that will give us more confidence in that volume, because there may be, thinning and thickening. There may be faults that disrupt the volume, if you like.
Yeah.
And also, the lithium price could go down, in which case we may wind up only potentially taking or finding a smaller volume of material at higher grade as economically viable. So there's a lot of studies to be done here, and that's as was said, we're still at the exploration stage, the advanced exploration stage.
What do you think that if everything succeeds, what would be the duration of the extraction over how many years?
Again, you'll have to wait till the PFS is completed. We're not in a position to be able to put that out, but we hope to be in a position to, as I said, announce it's completed by the end of this year, And so in the March quarter, I'll be able to share, the project metrics with the public. And we'll be forced to do that under the ASX reporting requirements. They have this thing called continuous disclosure. So anything that's material announcement, and that would be considered material, we have to announce immediately it's available.
And so if you're in the process of extracting this over a period of, say, a decade, and at the end of the decade, hydrogen suddenly becomes cheaper than batteries for a lot of EVs. Will there be, and if you put on the brakes because it's no longer economical, have you destroyed the whole area first, or is it kind of isolated as you go along?
Well, again, the PFS, that's what the mining engineers are looking at, but I would, if I had to guess, and so, don't hold me to it, but I would imagine that mining would be progressive. So we would start at one part of the deposit where probably the economics are most favourable, and the mining would then progress over a number of years, and that those areas that have been mined, we would then backfill and reclaim as we go, as I think was mentioned. I might have been that. Yeah.
And I guess it's.
Sorry, this gentleman over here.
We don't have an application.
Right.
Thank you. And perhaps this is for the Bureau too. What is the status of the environmental assessment that I think you're going to need for that expanded exploration project?
Yes, we haven't quite. We're about to commence NEPA, I think.
I think so. I've been on details, so I'm not fully plugged in on the exact status. Jonah, can you?
So we have completed the baseline studies, and the plan of operations has been reviewed, and I've started to get complete, so all the bids are there. We are going to be moving into public scoping, where we're going to put information out to the public and ask for input on the NEPA document. I believe in mid-July, correct?
July 12th is our target date.
Is when we're going to have the public scoping. It'll be a 30-day scoping period. And so for 30 days, all of our documents will be up on the website. And we will solicit public input on things like alternatives and whatnot. At which time we will review the public input when that closes. And we'll formally kick off. People will identify what needs to be in the environmental assessments and other documents and move through. Once we have a draft environmental assessment that the BLM is comfortable with and that our subject matter experts have reviewed and approved, we are going to put it up on e-planning for a minimum 30-day review period, where the public can review and comment upon our environmental assessment. And at the end of that, we will take all public comments, and all the substantive ones we will respond to. If there are any changes that we need to make in our analysis, we will of course put those in. If there are substantive changes to the document based upon public comment, then we will put it out for another review, depending on the nature of the changes. If they're just minor changes and whatnot, then we will update e-planning with our decision, the decision document is finalized.
Oh, sorry. Will there be any more drilling and testing between now and the completion?
If there is, it'll be minimal, and it will be based on our existing notice, and that will depend on the assessment of our reclamation that we've done to date, and whether that will allow us to probably reoccupy sites that we've already drilled from, rather than create new sites. Sorry, just before you, the gentleman down the back has been very patient.
This is for the BLM. What percentage of the APE or exploration area, and we're not, but what percentage of that has received a class 3, include class 2 or class 3?
I believe we have 100% class 3 inventory.
100% of the direct class 3 of the direct APE,
right.
And the indirect APE?
I'll have to check on that. I don't have that exact number.
Okay.
And I think 30 days is not quite long enough comment period.
Sorry, this lady here was.
I just wanted to make a suggestion. I had started doing the newsletter with doing for my community with typing it, printing it on paper, and posting it physically on the post office and our wellness center, our travel building, and music runs out, and that method is actually the best way to get any message out. the post office here, everyone comes and checks their mail. We all know the time window of the mail when it's open, and I just wanted to throw that suggestion out. If you really want the public's input or any, I just want to give that method or a suggestion to you that something, because websites don't, internet isn't the best, the strongest asset for the community out here. Not very many people, I mean, yeah, they have smartphones, but they're too busy working and doing other things. I would strongly, it's very old school, but I just wanted to share that with you, that's how the community is.
Our next break, could I brainstorm with you about where you can get those documents to you? Thank you.
I'm gonna say, if anybody in the room wants to be on the notification list for this project, certainly let us know and we'll make sure that you're included.
Yeah, are you familiar with the concept of habitat fragmentation?
Yes, sir.
Then in the context of what you're describing as just the exploration, so you've already done, BLM said 67, you said 62, I believe, drill holes. Now you're talking about 267 more. So when you're looking at the sagebrush out there that's already been killed and destroyed, you've already fragmented a considerable bunch of sagebrush of high quality sage grouse habitat, recognized as the highest caliber sage grouse habitat in the sage grouse plants. Now you're planning on whatever the top that I can do. The amount of disturbance out there. So we're getting up to a very high level of disturbance. And the reason I asked you earlier about have you aged the sagebrush you killed out there, it takes a very, very long time to recover that for my own sagebrush, some of the other shrubs. So, you know, have you considered doing any EIS? This is for BLM. An EIS for this exploration stage, given the sage grouse focal habitat that was identified out there?
We have not.
I would like to ask you to do that.
As a person who works with tree rings, I can state for a fact that those sagebrush are extremely old out there. They are taller than me. You look for big sage, as an archaeologist, you look for big sage, you look for buried archaeology, intact cultural deposits. The sage is huge out there. You guys are going to see it tomorrow for those that haven't seen it.
Does sagebrush capture carbon?
Yes.
It does. So by destroying all the sagebrush, you're gonna let go of the carbon. That's
Yes.
holding inside the earth.
Yes, look, I mean, it's an interesting philosophical approach because at the same time, you're trying to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions.
Carbon offset.
And remove internal combustion engines from society so that you can achieve net zero by 2050. And so, it's a dilemma that all environmentalists are facing, for example, sort of on the one hand, on the other hand, which way do you go and what's the best place to find the compromise? And it's not easy. Look, I get it. It's not easy.
This is interesting. Did you save the top part of your cores that you drilled where you might have some of the Holocene sedimentary stratigraphy?
In the case, that's a very good question. In the case of the RC, we've got chips basically that go from surface, small drill chips, and so we've got a complete record from surface to bottom of hole. In the case of most of the core holes, I think I'm right in saying this, Brett, they basically remove, or they kind of drill down, let's say the top 5 meters or so, until they get a nice stable base and then they case that, and then from there on you've got continuous cores. So we don't have a record of that, say, top 5 meters where we've core drilled, but we do have where we've used RC drilling. But actually, you've just reminded me, our exploration office is just right next door, It's the old fire station. We've got 3 of the bays there we're leasing from the fire department. And everyone's welcome at the end of this to go across there, and we've got one of the core holes laid out, and you can see, example of what the drill core looks like in the flesh, and just get a feel for what, an exploration base looks like if you're not familiar with one.
I mention all this just because if you would have saved the top of those sediments, you could have actually built an environmental baseline for the last 10,000 years. One of the things that this part of Nevada is sorely missing is a paleo environmental record. So a record of the evolution of the environment over the last 14,000 years here in the Lahontan Basin. But then that could also, again, you can establish baseline for fire history, because I don't know if the EIS is going to talk about fire history of this landscape or anything like that. But it could also, again, build baselines for relative pollution after as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, the lady down here, Mary Jo, you had a...
Yeah, I know you are not mining this, but because I know nothing about lithium mining, this is a clay deposit, right? Not a brine.
Yeah.
How is it mined? I'm not saying you're proposing that.
No.
And I know, I'm just trying to learn.
Yeah. And again, this is not on the record if you
No,
like.
well,
because this is the guess. But look,
right?
it's highly likely it'll be mined by an open pit or open cast mine.
Yeah, all right.
And
I just didn't know if there's a hole in the ground or an open pit or how you get it out.
The PFS will determine how deep, but the mineralisation extends down to a maximum of 200 metres, but on average about 100 metres below the surface. That's about 300 feet. But that doesn't mean that all of it will be mined, because there's a section, the bottom part of the sediments, for example, where there's no or very, very low levels of lithium. And the mining studies will identify the parts of the deposit that will deliver the best economic return. So it'll chase highest grades closest to surface, basically. Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't mean.
Oh, yeah, that's right. No, they're all good questions. Thank you.
So is there going to be a study? Could you do a study about how much carbon is captured by an old growth stage?
We haven't done that. No.
We want to do that, right? Because the root is very deep under sagebrush.
Yes, I understand.
And so we're we're basically cutting down the forest. It's not a forest, it's sagebrush. It's releasing all the carbon in the air. So what are you doing?
Yep. Point taken. There's no other questions though.
Any more questions? Well, I think we're going to take a break then until,
thank you. Oh, and yes, and the caution sheet, as I said, it's open for.
Oh, wait, we got a hand.
Oh, sorry.
Mary.
Thank you. Some of this I could not totally hear. I want a clarification of, so is this an Australian company?
It's an Australian company with predominantly Australian and American shareholders.
Okay, and then my other question, which probably you can't answer, but one of the concerns I have, and I don't know if that's fits within what you guys are doing with the mining, but the concerns I have with this whole thing with lithium is the batteries that we're constantly hearing about, fires with the batteries, and even, whether it's your cell phone, it's your car, or it's your whatever. And so in mining this, is there any way to control that, or is that just out of the realm of what you guys are able to do?
I can't. Yeah, again, look, the product that we'll be producing, assuming everything goes according to plan, and there's a lot of hurdles, as you've heard, to clear before we get to that stage, would be lithium carbonate, which would be then shipped to a battery factory or battery factories in the United States for processing into lithium-ion batteries. So lithium carbonate is very stable, and is, it's only when in fact, I'll say that probably the technology of lithium-ion batteries has advanced considerably. And there's quite a number of different sorts of lithium-ion batteries. And for example, EVs are moving to a lithium iron phosphate battery because it is not, it's got a lower chance of having any thermal sort of well, I forget the exact term, but basically fire. You know, so in the early stages of lithium-ion batteries, there were examples of you know, the batteries catching fire, but that's become pretty rare, I understand, in the last 5 years.
Okay,
But
thank
yes,
you.
to answer to your question, we will be, you know, the processing route will mean that there's no risk of any thermal events at site, because we would be producing a material which then has to be processed to turn it into a lithium-ion battery.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a,
Thank you.
there was a 15-minute break.
Yeah, so 10 after.
10 after 3 o'clock. We'll resume. That'll be for public comment.
I might. Must be because the next. Last night it was slow, now it's fast. There must be some kind of vortex. Some kind of electrical vortex. Last night it was slow and now it's fast. Well, my mother was a music
Oh, yeah, right.
but my eldest brother was born here. My second brother was born in Germany, and then I got. But actually, my mom, back down, my brother, middle brother, born in Germany, and has some of my. Yes. Yeah.
That's why I think of it. You know,
Oh, yeah.
In fact, there's a really, I know. One of the. And one of the hit songs. Catching and trying across Australia, they had to catch the ship out of Sydney to go to meet. They really started their hustling.
My brother was 2 years old when he came to the US. Yeah. That's how I. It was when I was. I've never been able to find it, heard about it, it was someone that had one daughter, one married in America, one married in Aussie, I think, and then one married locally, but it's the story of that kind of time, and it's what happens to guys, it was like that.
One of the good things. She didn't use that. So she's married an American as well.
But anyway, so I'll go teach that. Yes, lots of look. Thank you. Okay, this has been our most exciting RAC meeting I've ever been to.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta be.
Then you look at ways you can do it. And also long as you do it. We're probably going to be. If you know anything about this, what are you going to do? Yep, that's all, and then you would get down. But injuries. The longer you leave it out, the more chances they're going to. Yeah. I mean, it's the pleasure of yeah, that's one way to go. And yeah, you get migration. Because then the environment's going to be different in 20 years from then. They're just taking it. So not easy. Very good. So you're going to follow this? Sorry, okay, good. So.
So that's great. What else?
Pretty serious. And I say that this is.
Okay.
Your staff.
Yeah. Okay. Cool, all right.
Yeah. Realize this. All of these are given.
What makes sense, but then she just got rid of the person like, this 7 years. And then we see
First,
it's like, do it and then be there for 5 years. And that's why you're stopped off. So she did her homework and really quick.
Oh, wow, I think you're.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I put a bunch of extra. Well, yeah, it was. Make sure that was conversation.
Okay. Yeah, that fire is really. Ground implementation means, well, actually. Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, nice. Oh, cool. Yeah. So you can get down, look at store. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the art connection here. Yeah. And here I'd like to appreciate the conversation. As how much we great conversation.
Yeah, it's-
This is another market one. This is let anybody take care of this. Conversation is
Okay, everybody, let's get back.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah.
No, I know we're not going, but on maps, it kind of.
Again, is there anybody in the?
It's bad.
You guys.
Never take people in the back country.
They said, go ahead. Okay. Okay, we're gonna start the public opportunity to speak. We've got about 15-20 minutes to do that. How many people are going to want to make comment? Raise your hand. Sorry, what was the question? How many people want to make a comment during the public comment? Okay.
Raise hands if you have.
Raise, everybody raise their hand. We got.
Okay, so I'm seeing 3, Mark, Katie, and Sammy. Am I? Somebody, okay.
One online.
And one online.
All right, so
Okay.
let's limit ourselves into 5 minutes. And be sure and state your name, and is that about all you need to do for?
If you're with an organization, we
Okay,
appreciate
who
that
you
as well.
represent. So who would like to be first?
Not everybody just.
Who would like to be last?
Well, let's see, mind if I go?
Come on up.
See, the first question I had, I guess, would be, excuse me. My name is Sammy Casting, I'm from Ontario, Oregon. I guess it'd be for you, is it Jonah? With Grassy, Paramount and Calico, have they applied for any other plans for exploration in the area around the Grassy deposit?
We have no ongoing communication with them. They've done some notice level work, but we're processing their development plan of operations now.
Okay, good. And then I suppose for Lindsay, can Lindsay be directed questions during public comment period, or is it just yelling? Any presenters? I guess I can go to Daniel
It's
then.
at Lindsay's discretion.
Question.
Yeah, regarding,
If it's bad, you may pass it off to me. Huh?
yeah, I guess it's regarding permitting within the caldera. Are there other plans of note or notices for plans of exploration in any other drilling campaigns beyond what generally is shared?
So you're asking if there's other plans of operations for exploration?
Yeah.
That have been submitted to us?
Yeah, you
No.
shared 2.
No, they're working under notice level act.
Okay, but not submitted in any drilling campaign exploration.
Not for plans of operation,
Okay.
right? They're exploring under that notice level.
Okay. And I think you gave the numbers of some of those that they're planning, right?
Like the number of wells.
Of course.
Or yeah, right.
Yeah, okay. And then, do you mind taking a question?
No, sure.
Are there other, beyond the McDermott caldera, are there other calderas either in the region, in the United States that Jindalee has their eye on?
Not really. We have one other project outside of McDermott, and that is again for a sediment hosted lithium target, but that is and we call that Clayton North. It's north of Albemarle's Silver Peak operation, but that is very early stage. I think we drilled 6 holes into the maximum, and I think only one of those holes got lithium rich sediments. So we haven't done any drilling for at least 2 years.
Okay, good. I think those are all my comments. The rest I have a lot of interest in the core, and a lot of questions about the geology that we'll wait for tomorrow. Okay, thank you.
Next individual.
Katie Fight, I'm Public Lands Director with Wildlands Defense. And earlier, I guess I would just like very quickly in the public comment period to reiterate what I said earlier, that really this area needs to be recognized for all the important values out here, everything from the Yellowstone hotspot to Lindsay described the unique deposits that are out here. And as a biologist, for its very important biological values, especially in the context of what is happening across the Great Basin and the loss of sagebrush and the ever shrinking range of sage grouse. And we're facing a situation where the white population could be isolated from the Sheldon population, essentially, if the lithium boom exploration and development proceeds in the caldera. Because I believe it was Honda that prepared a map that I just saw last week. Yes, are you going to talk about that, Mark?
You said brought copies, we'll try.
Okay, if he's going to talk about that, this should be frightening to look at this map and to get an idea of what could happen if the McDermott caldera is developed for lithium. And of course, BLM already recognized that these lands should be drawn from mineral entry back in 2015. First, it was a rancher minor lawsuit, and then got withdrawn, and then BLM by administration started the process again. Hasn't moved forward separately from the big mass of sagebrush. But that doesn't, just because BLM is foot dragged, etc., that doesn't mean that any bit of the importance to this area has gone away. It's only increased over time. So I really urge the RAC not to do everything you can to make sure any additional disturbance out there, and that includes these 267 additional drill sites. If they go in, and I firmly believe they should not be allowed to go forward, mining law, no mining law, whatever, because they're fragmenting this habitat that we don't know how to recover and repair. And so many sagebrush species are very sensitive to habitat fragmentation and disturbance. And you will be taking out an important area of basically recognized superlative habitat in the very center of the caldera, all these lakes around it. And super important migratory security habitat. So I urge the RAC to members, and I don't know if you can form a committee, whatever, but to really look at the importance of the values out. Because as a biologist, this project cannot be mitigated. There's no possible way to mitigate a full-blown mining.
Yep.
Oh, God.
Okay, please wait your turn.
Thank you. Next.
So, Eric Robinson, Native Environment Solutions, but I work for the McDermott, Paiute tribes as a consultant. I just want to suggest one thing. We are in the era of co-stewardship. Jindalee project provides the ultimate opportunity for the BLM, and for Jindali to come together to say, we will support coast stewardship where native peoples get to help monitor the land, right? There's a lot of disputes that occurs because there's not enough talking on both sides of the table. There are productive win-win solutions that can be developed through coast stewardship plans. And we've heard about the BLM districts being taxed for money. There's a lot of vacant positions. Coast stewardship model can actually help alleviate some of those infrastructural, institutional constraints that the BLM has as well. So I know that McDermott has the coast stewardship plan for this area, and I would encourage the RAC to talk to the BLM about this coast stewardship plan, and for the BLM and Jindali to take this very seriously, because this could be an absolutely pioneering opportunity for coast stewardship across America. And that's real sustainability, right? Because that's enabling people who lived here for time immemorial to gain some ownership of their lands, okay, and some say in them. So thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Okay. I'm Mark Sappho with Oregon National Desert Association. Thank you, Southeastern Oregon Resource Advisory Committee for the meeting today, and inviting the public to it. I really appreciated being here. Learned a lot. As Katie also described, Oregon National Desert Association is concerned about proposed mining in McDermott caldera, even at the exploration stage. We know what's coming, which could be industrial scale mining, the likes of which this region does not yet experience, and will likely have undeniable and unavoidable impacts on wildlife and watersheds and water supply. So whatever development may or may not occur here, it's got to be done very thoughtfully, and to your point, sir, thank you, involving the local community, especially Native American tribes, in decision-making, management, and care of the lands and resources. As Katie described, Oregon National Desert Association has made a map of the caldera of the current claims within that region. More than half of the caldera has now been claimed for potential mineral development. With Larissa's permission, I'll send it to her for sharing with the RAC members wherever it may be useful to you. But it's not all about bad news. Here from ANDA, we really appreciate the work done on the Southeastern Oregon Resource Management Plan amendment. It is thoughtful, it is balanced, it is progressive, and will provide for lands and resources for generations to come. So thanks very much, Bureau of Land Management, for that work. Thank you, Todd, for the work that you and your team are doing on the Lakeview Resource Management Plan amendment. We look forward to it this year.
Anyone else? Online?
Mary is no longer in the group.
Are you sure you're not going to speak? Anyone? Let's then go ahead to.
If Mary comes back in, maybe
Okay.
we'll give her a chance, but.
Otherwise, we'll
No, yeah.
start our round table discussion. Anything that people want to talk about in the future or would like to add now? Tim?
Yeah, there's one topic for a future RAC discussion, and it relates to the amendment that is right now in the protest period, but that's only covered, again, that's an amendment to the RMP. So maybe a future discussion is see what else is in that RMP that this amendment doesn't cover. So us as a RAC, as a body, can understand at a whole what the resources are, how they are to be managed as we look at other projects that keep coming up and how it affects everything. So, and I guess one last thing, as Jonah talked about earlier with the travel management, with that too. If we know what else is in that RMP that the amendment doesn't cover, as we go into travel management, we'll have a better understanding in that process as well.
I have just kind of a question. There were 5 of us here today and 3 or 4 of us on where are we on applications? And while I love these learning opportunities, I'm concerned the RAC doesn't have a forum and how we can actually get into the advisory part of our RAC council. And is there?
So I spoke to the higher ups yesterday, and the message that came back was they hope to have appointments before the October meeting.
How many?
We have 6 applications in. That does not mean that they will all be accepted. But we also pointed out that we have 2 terms expiring in September, and then we won't even have a quorum on paper. So we need to fill some slots.
We currently don't have a quorum, correct?
We don't have a quorum here today.
But on paper, do we have a quorum?
On paper, we have 10 members. So if we had 3 from each advisory group, then we would have a quorum and we could take formal actions.
And if we don't have a quorum, what is the RAC's ability to provide advice to the BLM? Can we still, I mean, I know all the the district managers are here. They're listening to our comments and stuff, but it's not official. I just wonder.
So the minutes of the meeting, we have to submit a meeting report within 2 weeks from the meeting summarizing the meeting itself, and then the notes follow, and those are read, they're paid attention to. We've run into the problem of not having a quorum before. The RAC can come to a consensus as a group and, acknowledging that there's not a quorum, but the group has discussed this, and, this is the group thought or viewpoint on a matter, and that's not disregarded. And the RAC has, you heard today, the RAC input and the resource management plan amendment,
right,
went a long way, and it will also be a bigger part of the Lakeview plan amendment as they move forward. Okay. So your voices are heard with or without a quorum. Fingers crossed for October.
Fingers crossed.
Any other ideas from the district managers? Is there input that you want? We're not being asked and whatever.
From my perspective, that there's sort of 2 critical functions to RAC, well, 3 actually. So the first one is the RAC can, regardless of quorum or no quorum, provide a voice that represents the broader utilization groups or interest groups in the agency. So whether we have a quorum or we don't, when we hear from you matters, and that is it's representative of who you represent. The flip of that is true, and that is that from the RAC members' perspective, whether there's 1 of you from a group or 3 of you from a group, the idea that you're sharing the information that you're learning, you're sharing the status and updates among your constituencies, that's a critical function. So that happens whether or not there's. When we're sitting in the meeting and we identify, we make a specific request from the RAC to provide us with advice on a specific target topic. That then does trigger the rules under the quorum. And so, depending on where we are in a particular RAC meeting and whether or not we're requesting information and feedback from you, I think at that point there, that becomes a key question, right? Whether or not there's a quorum. From my perspective, that the information that you share, whether it's an official RAC position that you voted on, or if because of things outside of your control, you can't provide that vote, it doesn't mean it diminishes the value of that feedback. There's a formality piece of it, and then there's a practical piece. Right.
Well, any other comments? Should we plan for meeting dinner at 6 o'clock?
Yes,
I think when,
pardon?
at the casino.
At the casino. They do a dining room for us. Also, a couple of housekeeping matters before you leave. If you're here and you have not signed in, please do. It's important to have that record. It is looked at by the agency, and it helps us keep a more complete record of what we've discussed. RAC members, if you have not yet turned in your travel voucher, please get that to me tomorrow morning. We will be leaving from, let's meet in the Diamond Day parking lot, because I think that's where most everybody's staying. And we will leave from there at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. There is a little cafe that's open on Wednesdays, not Tuesdays. And they open at 7 for some added breakfast options.
Where are they located?
Where's the cafe?
I will make sure you guys have the address.
North end of town, right off of 95, like right as you're coming into town.
Oh, the out west.
Yeah.
Far out west or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's 8 o'clock at the Diamond Day.
Yes, please.
It is in Oregon.
Ma'am, I have a question. Are you gonna take a jaunt into the mine gaseous Aurora country? Or are you going straight to the Durban?
Well, we'll probably go see some of the exploration activities that are going on out there first, and then there's an optional stop, probably at the Brett's mine on the way back.
Okay, so I'm just wondering where to lead you. Before the turn into the Aurora.
Man, you probably would want to come a little ways down Disaster Peak Road if you want to guarantee to Tetris.
We were talking at lunch today as to the timetable for the return and whether or not people should come prepared to have lunch in the field.
We expect to be back by lunch or for lunch. Some of that's going to depend on the discussions, but
So just bring your personal snacks and something to drink.
we will have water and fruit available as well. I think that's it for the housekeeping. So we'll see y'all at dinner at 6 o'clock.
And as mentioned, if anyone wants to see the drill. Just come from us.
Teresa, we're wrapping up here. Thank you.
I got enough crap. Okay. You'll come up, of course, if there's a big long line of cars, you may not be able to. No, I meant, you may not be able to get across the street.
Oh, okay.
Okay.